Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome all to Upsurge Premier League Week 3. We've got 100 Thieves taking on Radiance tonight. It's going to be a hell of a matchup. My name is Mark Raf Alexander Automede, and joining me on the cast is going to be my good friend and casting partner,
Oh,
Mr.
wait.
can
There we
we get
go,
can we get it?
boys. I don't
Bam.
know. I don't know. Oh,
Mr.
we tried.
Dimitri
We tried.
Battery Toledo completing the heart. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, man. I'm really excited to not only get to see 100 Thieves versus Radiance yet again, but get to be on the casting desk with you, which we haven't done for a few months. So I'm excited.
Absolutely. We were going over a little bit of prep work about this matchup. We recently saw 100 Thieves on UPL take down Frostfire. I believe it was back in
Yeah,
week 1, and it was very convincing. And if you guys are big amateur League of Legends fans, if you're going around not just in Upsurge, but over on Big League, we've seen 100 Thieves take down Maryville University in a very convincing fashion 2-0, which in the same token, just on last Friday, Maryville played against Radiance, which is one of our lovely contenders tonight, did take them down 2-0. So on paper, Radiance, the odds are stacked against them here.
for sure. I mean, 100 Thieves has been just kind of tearing through amateur recently, and even a couple months beforehand. And it is no lie to say, hey, by the way, like 100 Thieves next coming into this game more than likely are looking to be the massive favorites in this matchup. However, we kind of like we were talking about. Radiance, I think, needs to show a lot when it comes to this matchup. Like we were saying earlier, the onus is on 100 Thieves to perform to their level, and if they don't, then a lot of doubt starts to get shifted to them, and it's, well, is this the kind of I guess wish-washiness of 100 Thieves? Because there are certain times when we take a look at this team and they start to fall, and they drop a game here, and it feels a little bit random as to when it happens. And I think that if there's any time for it to happen, has to be now for Radiance. Has to
Yeah.
be now where they catch them slipping.
And Radiance need to take this time that even if the odds are stacked against them, they need to take every single game as a moment to learn and as a learning experience. They need to be able to take this time to mesh better as a team, be able to figure out, certain strategies if they work, gelling the teams together. Because not to say that any of these players are bad on paper. In fact, there's a lot of young individual talent, as well as some veteranship in Ango in the top lane, who did play for FlyQuest Academy back in 2019, both spring and summer split. And Avi, even though he is technically not in Academy, he has not been Academy yet. For those that have been following the collegiate scene, he was the superstar jungler for UCI varsity. I still believe that he still plays for them, as they recently performed and won the Immortals tournament that they did for their community. So, but between Avi and Ango, they've definitely been around on the top end of the amateur bracket here. And of course, Young Mid, Andy Benny, and King, aka Ugandan royalty, have all had their fair share of being able to contest with the best. It's just this is the first time that, as a roster together, they're playing, and they still need time, clearly based on their previous games, to still continue figuring out what is the best way to play together as a 5-man cohesive unit.
Yeah, and that's really dangerous of a situation to kind of set yourself up in, right? You look across the table from yourself in this matchup, and you have Tenacity, who has been kind of touted as this superstar top laner, the kind of similar vein as to Niles on Maryville, and you've got Akinoki and Otto, who have been a surprising duo, considering we've actually seen Otto obviously swap down into that support role, is doing fantastic for himself versus Andy Bandy and King. So I'm really interested to see how this Radiance kind of roster kind of lines up, and specifically, I think we were talking about it. I am Avi, I feel, is going to have to be kind of the pin for the draft as we go through how they're going to make it through this game and hopefully find themselves a win, is hopefully through I am Avi.
And we are going into draft phase right now. And surprisingly enough, I mean, not for Alk Battery, because we were doing a little bit of mock drafts beforehand, and so far, a lot of these bans from the side of 100 Thieves are pretty much what Alk Battery was suspecting to be taken out of the table, whereas for Radiance, the Trundle and the Vars bans are coming in, as we've seen from past games, even though Kenvi is a player that would definitely like to play something more fun, like the Graves or the Lee Sin, the
Yeah.
Trundle, is something that
I'm
will.
I'm I'm really scared, man, because every game
Yeah.
for 100 Thieves, it's just first pick Trundle, first pick Trundle, first pick Trundle, and they've been kind of punished on it sometimes, but for the most part, I think they're doing fine. For 100 Thieves next, I think it's pretty stock standard for them to take the Ornn and Callista away for themselves. I'm actually surprised to see Set is not sitting on that, kind of sitting in that table for themselves, because typically what we see from 100 Thieves when they are on blue side is they get rid of that Ornn, Callista, and the Set, and then they move into trying to pick up either their AD carry or picking up, obviously, that Trundle first pick. So already we see from Radiance, they've taken away, like you were saying, that Trundle and that Varus, but Set is the next one. And interestingly enough, this was something that we had talked about when we were doing those mock drafts. Syndra here for 100 Thieves next. I think this is super interesting, especially because Aki has been putting games on some of those mages, specifically Talia I was looking at, but Syndra I think is perfectly fine.
Yeah,
Ooh,
and
we saw that. Ooh.
Well, I'll have to get back to the Cinder Point in a little bit, but the
Yeah.
Ziggs Thresh potential lock-in is very interesting because Ziggs is starting to rise as a mid laner, not only in just highest levels of play and amateur play, but even in solo queue a lot. We're seeing it as a potential way to just stall out a bunch of aggressive comps that need to be able to snowball early because the amount of wave clear that Ziggs offers. And in terms of bottom lane matchups, he actually does fairly well based on our own personal experience as well. 100 Thieves going immediately with the Kindred pick since both Graves and Trundle are down. That will be taken away from Avi, but Lee Sin is a very old school counter pick, and it's something that Avi never shies away from if it's up on the table.
For sure. I'm really interested to see how this kind of goes up. We were talking about, hey, 100 Thieves, they're probably going to try and prioritize Kindred if Trundle's not going to be allowed for them. And I mean, for Radiance, like you were saying, we even saw them last week. Going up against Maryville, they decided, hey, we're gonna try out the Ziggs bot lane with Andy Bendy, and it didn't look absolutely, it did kind of fall apart. Obviously, when we saw versus Pyke, the Maokai support didn't look too hot from King, but I mean, this allows for a lot of flexibility here. I think we're gonna start seeing a lot more kind of shift into bot side priority, and I'm actually interested to see if Otto is going to be the one to play the Maokai here, because going into Thresh, I think it's a perfectly fine matchup, and it's definitely not a champion that we've seen Tenacity play. So I think they just want to, try to prolong as much for a potential counter pick for him in the top side.
Nautilus being taken off the table as there's still potential support that needs to be locked in for Otto here. However, we've seen some teams flex that Maokai from the top lane to the bottom lane, and we definitely could see Tenacity wanting to pick something more aggressive, more lane dominant, as last time we saw 100 Thieves on UPL, he was pulling out likes of the Set, and if you did see that 100 Thieves against Maryville game, the Lucian into the Gangplank as the very abusive counterpick matchup. Jace and LeBlanc being taken off the table against Radiance, making sure that Engo doesn't get his most favorite top laner pick, as well as taking away that LeBlanc to be able to match in the Syndra. But the thing is, Akinoki has put in games on the Syndra as well, so we don't know if this Syndra is either for the mid lane or the bot lane quite yet.
Yeah, and that was actually what I was looking at, is when as soon as this Maokai comes in, it's a huge bait here for 100 or for Radiance here. Obviously, like you were saying, they want to try and take away Engo's kind of powerful picks, which not only Jace, but specifically Gnar, and getting this Maokai in that third pick, they immediately are able to trap in that Gnar for Radiance, and now if they want, they can go for that counter pick, which is all key, the exact thing that I was looking for. I don't think they're going to play Lucian to it. I really hope they don't, but I mean, Tenacity has been putting reps into this champion, and all throughout Amateur, he's been just tearing up every single matchup on Lucian. It really doesn't matter who he plays up against, always GP, sometimes. I wouldn't be surprised. We've been seeing a little bit of Camille, and I'm a little bit interested to see if they're willing to pull it out. But so exactly. So they're going to take the Lucian. Senna into Maokai. This was something that we may have prepped. We're seeing a little bit of Senna, but she's definitely fallen back in terms of priority. I'm interested that Aphelios just kind of Aphelios, Varus, and Misfortune just got completely left on the wayside for this draft. Varus is banned. My brain, look, my brain only works half the time, 100% of the time.
So Cassidy being hovered here, which with the lock-in, it is going to be Ziggs in the bottom lane along with that Thresh, something we were alluding to the possibility. About this Cassidy pick. Now, here's my thing. we haven't quite seen where things are lining up in terms of picks, but if they want to make sure that this Cassidon doesn't get the advantageous matchup into the Syndra, there's a ton of flexible options here. You could run something like Syndra and Maokai in the bottom lane. Or actually, no, you can't with Senna. So I don't. Does Syndra and Senna work here, Mr. All Battery?
So I think that
You want to run Lucian into the mid lane.
Yeah, I don't. I think that like the most flexibility you would have is to like they've kind of locked themselves into like, this very like tank composition. They obviously want to try the fasting Senna with Maokai sitting there soaking up as much gold and experience as possible. Make sure that he gets to level 11, level 13, and then he's just, you know, he's really, really strong a lot earlier than maybe he could have been. If they want to protect this Cassidon pick, I think Radiance are going to have to play around mid, and that's something we actually haven't seen from them all that often. Typically, what they like to pick here for mid is Azir, Corki, make sure that they get him like this really nice scaling matchup, which Cassidon definitely falls into. And, I mean, even early on, Copy has shown to kind of play a little bit more safe in lane, especially if he's going to be going up against something like Lee Sin. So wouldn't be surprised if we actually see this Cassidon matchup not go super punished, especially since you have something like Kindred kind of sitting in the jungle. More than likely, if there's ever going to be any kind of action in mid lane, Young is just going to be kind of pushed out of lane and probably going to be down about 20 CS early on.
I am slightly curious about this top lane matchup because we've seen Tenacity roll the Lucian into the gangplank, specifically Niles, and it was absolutely disastrous. But it did require a lot of attention from Kenvi to ensure that the matchup went Tenacity's way, because even though he had a lot of power, it did not necessarily mean he executed everything correctly, because it is definitely one of the higher risk, higher reward type of compositions to manipulate and execute correctly. And I mean, I'm sure we could go further and further into this composition, but before we get into game, as we're getting ready through the spectator delay, ladies and gentlemen, we do want to give a huge shout out to one of our sponsors, Sector 6, with this amazing video.
Started with a vision of quality, a vision of uniformity.
We took the time to create something familiar yet refreshing, something with a bit of change.
Designed to fit any brand's unique vision.
It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. About It's all about humanity.
Thank you for your patience, everyone. We were just getting through some technical issues. We did not get a chance to see the first couple minutes of the game, but to fill us in, all Battery did get a chance to see what the early level ones did look like.
Yeah, so sadly, they went for an early invade on the side of 100 Thieves. They were not able to find anything as they just barely missed out on an early ward into the river. And on the opposite side, 100 Thieves were able to scout out that Avi was on red. They got an early ward. And so like we see right now, 2.5 minutes in, or 2:45, we have just vertical jungling going on. And we were actually talking about it during the break that we wanted to see Avi go for an early topside cheese, make sure that they can at least put tenacity behind early and give some of their other laners some time to scale.
Yeah. But for Avi on this Lee Sin, he's kind of on a timer. He definitely wants to help Ango in this top lane against the Lucian because later on, Tenacity will be able to build items such as that Blade of the Ruin King will be able to just out-sustain Gnar in this matchup. So as a jungler, I would personally like to see a lot of attention towards the top side. It looks like, as you said, they've already split the map. The first mark is on the top side as well. So Avi should be able to deny this from Kenvi. It's not going to be the most fun time for the Kindred early on, but the marks will eventually come later on.
Yeah, and against this team, you actually are really looking to try and get that early range advantage. A lot of people are obviously, they really heavily index on getting that 4 so you can become quote-unquote a real champion. But when you're playing up against a lot of squishy members and obviously like the Lee Sin and things like Ziggs, you want to make sure that you can try and maximize your range as quickly as possible. And we're seeing potentially a lot of mid focus as both junglers are there. And I think actually mid has done a really great job as earlier on, he actually had a massive wave stacked up against him and really would have created a really dangerous situation for himself. But Copy was able to get an early back, gets himself that, the Dark Seal. Is looking pretty good on both sides for both mid laners here.
Would you call that a cheater recall, Mr. Ogbatter?
It's before 5 minutes. So, I mean, I didn't get to see whether or not he lost a lot on the mini wave or how many minions he may have potentially lost. But it's close to as a cheater recall as you can get. Close, but probably not it.
Now, something to note between the jungle matchup in Avi and Kenvi. Kenvi is already able to make that first purchase on the Skirmisher Saber, whereas Avi still looking for a recall as he's sitting on about 1,000 gold, and Kenvi might make the first gank happen as the bunch of crowd control goes down on Andy Bendy, and the Thresh Lantern is just not going to be enough to secure the safe passage for Andy to get out. And first blood goes over to the jungler of 100 Thieves next.
Yeah, great job right there. Just want to make sure. Yeah, so that was not a mark. So sadly, again, no mark gaming out here. Tenacity, more importantly, in the top side has to blow his flash. So earlier on, we're seeing, like you're saying, that top side focus. Avi not able to really execute on an early gank there, but this just yet again means that both sides of the map are going to start to get split. Dragon's going to be starting in a TP from Andy Bendy. Not level 6 quite yet, so probably not going to see any Mega Inferno bombs try to at least steal or pressure for a Drake, but an early Mountain Drake is definitely really helpful for this team, who isn't really going to index too heavily into any kind of defensive stats.
Avi does show himself, looks for the Sonic Wave. He's not going to find anything on the copy. He's just going to help Young Mid push in this wave so that he can get a nice little recall off, or actually, he's only sitting on 200 gold, so Young Mid doesn't really have anything to back for, so it's just hopefully trying to shove this wave out so he can get The wave reset, but in his favor. But on the bottom side of the map, Ignite comes down onto Auto, but Kenvi is already there for the roam. Avi's not going to be able to help out as he's already on the other side of the map. This time, the Dark Passage does come through and provides Andy Bendy that safe passage to safety. Kenvi does not find a kill, but they do burn both the Flash as well as the Ignite from King.
Yeah, and that's actually a really key timing here to try and at least catch Andy, Benny, and King. We were talking about it earlier that this lane matchup versus Maokai is incredibly difficult. I'd actually made the comparison that Maokai is going to feel a lot like Mundo into this team composition because how much magic resist he's going to be able to purchase versus something like Kassadin and the Ziggs. And Thresh is going to suffer so heavily in this lane. It's really key that they actually get the push in there because if they don't, and if Kenvi doesn't come down at that moment, this lane is constantly going to be shoving into Senna, and she's never really going to have another time to back, at least before the next Dragons. So really great job from 100 Thieves to try to at least release some pressure from their bot side. And hopefully this does mean that we're actually going to see some pressure in the mid lane as a couple pings are going out. They should know that King is roaming around. Copy, sitting on top of a ward and 3 members in his lane.
Holy moly. We have a Hex Flash coming in from King, but Akinoki is sitting in the wings on the Senna ready to make the counter gank happen. It's enough to just deter any aggression as Young Mid is just looking to fight for control of the mid wave, looking for a shove. He still doesn't have an ideal recall timer, but they could start roaming around, getting some vision deep into Kenvi's jungle onto the top side of the map. Ideally, as well for Engo, he was able to get a great buy in this Ninja Tabby boots. It does deter a lot of the damage that's going to be coming out from Tenacity early as King does find the hook on the copy, gets the flash out, but Scatter the Weak Stun will stop any further plays from happening.
Yeah, great job right there. Copy does have to blow this flash, which is actually really key. Obviously, when you're playing up against something like Lee Sin and the Thresh is really difficult for you to deal with. Hopefully, this means that now Young will be able to pressure. There's a wave that's about to crash into the turn, not a massive one, and it looks like Avi's going to try to potentially look for something. They do have Mega Gnar here.
Tenacity's already used the dash. He doesn't have flash. There is the Gnar. There's the kick, and this don't even need necessarily a kick. Avi just gets enough damage from the Sonic Wave into the Resonating Strike, and it's that easy, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I was wondering to see when that next gank was going to come through because Tenacity with no flash is obviously a really easy target for them to kind of punish. I was wondering, hey, maybe are they even going to be able to punish this? But now this just means that now it frees up the top side. Speaking against this Kassadin matchup, because of just how the jungle has been split vertically, it's going to be really painful for him to try to deal with a Syndra who has blue buff. So hopefully they're able to secure the next one, as we even see using that Mega Inferno Bomb to clear out that wave. It does now mean that Kenvi will be able to try to at least farm into that bot side. But an early Rift Herald goes over to Avi, and I think this is really important if they want to try to open up these lanes and specifically start to potentially get either Kassadin or Engo rolling.
So far, the attention towards the top side of the map has paid off for Avi and Engo. They've been able to ensure that Tenacity doesn't bully Engo out of this lane. The CS is even for now. The gold is even as for now. Whereas without any jungle assistance or interference from Avi, that lane matchup could have been quite disastrous for Engo. But now, with that kill lead, he does look like to be in a better spot, and Tenacity just does not look as dominant on this Lucian pick as he did when he was playing it against Niles' gameplay.
Yeah, this tends to be the case for Tenacity when he is playing Lucian. Like we said, watching against Frostfire when he did play up against oh my god, he played top lane into that GP matchup and he actually got really hard smashed, and this tends to be the case sometimes. Obviously, I wouldn't say coin flip, but it happens from time to time, and he does pick up the Cole. He goes for a little bit for more farm lane. Hold that as Tenacity potentially going down here. Mega Gnar going to be going out.
Culling will be traded by Engo, but the amount of damage between Engo, oh man! Close stuff from both top laners as both will die in the exchange.
Yeah, and there we go. That's the Tenacity effect right there. Ends up being a 1-for-1 trade. He tends to push his limits, and sometimes he ends up kind of positive in that trade. Thankfully, the wave will just match right there. It won't kind of push in favor of either one of them, and it'll keep the wave right there. Now this is going to be a really key teleport timing because Lucian more than likely is going to just try and push in this top side as this Infernal Drake is spawning, and it forces Engo now to be in a really awkward predicament. Tenacity's going to push this wave, and now Engo has to save TP to try and at least potentially kind of come up for a dragon coming up. Hold that as Aki's going to get slowly poked down.
King does find the death sentence, gets a 2-man play, but it looks like he's going to go down before the rest of his team is able to intervene. Avi gets the kick out, but has to flash away to be able to get away from imminent danger. But Kenvi, with the flash of his own, picks up the double, looking for the triple. Pakapi is going to pick up the 3rd kill of this fight. And Engo with the teleport, despite potentially having a numbers advantage, it has already been erased without Tenacity even being there. 100 Thieves pick up a massive win on the bottom side of the map, and they secure this Infernal Dragon.
Yeah, and that spells massive disaster as we go into the replay here. It is, I mean, we already saw the early TP. We start off with this play. King lands the hook. He has root. Then he ends up going in, and I think that's exactly when they start to try to go for this fight. The Senna ultimate comes out and isn't obviously too impactful. I think they're waiting for Andy Benny to show up and put down damage, but the way that their fights go, they have to poke them out. You have Cassidy, who's going to be waiting to kind of build up team fight damage, and this fight ends up going way too fast. We're just seeing Kenvi just slowly kind of tear apart this team throughout that entire fight. And like we had said, Tenacity, he's forcing in that top side. He got himself 3 plates during all of that. He knows that in a team fight, he's not going to have as much influence as someone like Engo, and Engo had not properly built up enough rage for that fight. So really rough stuff, and that is going to be massive to kind of see the impact of that over the next 5 minutes, as topside is going to be incredibly favored for 100 Thieves. And even Copy himself was able to pick up a kill or two. Aki as well, kind of stacking up his KDA in 62, 3,000 to 4,000 gold in favor. 100 Thieves are looking as strong as we kind of purported them to be. Massive wave stack top lane.
After that bottom side fight, Avi takes a look at that and says, you know what, I just need to go back top lane, because this is what was working before. They get the Gnar Slam onto Tenacity and just a massive amount of burst damage, but this time, Kenvi is here to even the things up. Otto even teleporting in as well to join the fight. King does have a Dark Passage, but Otto's just too massive, and he's going to stand right on top of it, ensuring that Avi cannot get out, and he's going to try his best to kite this one, but it's not going to be looking favorable for him as Kevin finally gets the killing blow. Copy flashes forward, gets the R Unleashed power out, but it's not going to be enough. King does manage to flash over the Baron Pit wall and will survive.
Man, I was just about to say that was looking like a really great escape. Great job from the side of Otto to try and at least block grabbing the Dark Passage right there to try and at least save Avi, but 2 for 1, and they have to force a bunch of summoners there. Radiance kind of getting a little bit desperate in some of their plays, but I think that's exactly where they have to be, right? They have to try to make these plays to try to make it a little bit uneven. They are setting Tenacity behind, but you have to think at what cost. I'll hold that as Engo now getting pushed out in similar fashion at a top side. Just a bunch of plates being crashed, and I don't think they're going to get anything. Copy's here. Doesn't have ultimate yet.
Yeah, but he still has Scatter of the Weak. He's got CC, and he's definitely got the damage. Avi just does not have any magic resist to be able to deal with the amount of burst damage that's coming from this mid lane for 100 Thieves. Even Andy Bendy has joined the fight, and he looks to turn things around, gets a massive shutdown onto Kenvi, but they get the turret, and now they look to walk out, but Engo is on hot pursuit. He's got the boomerang. He needs to land it to be able to get the slowdown. Almost at 100 rage, looking to Mega Gnar. Couple people into the wall, and Young Mid has finally joined the fight. Rift walks in. There's the Mega Gnar slam. They pick up 1. They pick up 2. And Radiance, they're still fighting. They're looking to be able to tango with the best.
Yeah, great job right there from Radiance. They actually find a pretty massive overextend. They say, hey, you're going to take this topside turret. Well, that's fine. We'll kind of catch you on the reconnect right there. I was going to say that copy stun early on from Syndra was potentially game-saving, but that hook from King ends up connecting on the Copy. They're able to find massive kills. Not only is Cassidy picking up, getting a recipient of that, Andy Bendy yet again on this Ziggs is looking fantastic. Avi levels down on Tenacity. Has to be really careful here.
And he's waiting for cooldowns right now. He just wants to be able to go... All right, that was pretty slick. I'm not going to lie. He knew that Tenacity, having very little mana, has no way of being able to get out or escape that fight, and Avi just needs to play it patiently cool. It doesn't even matter he was 2 levels down. He knew the situation was his to control.
Yeah, and that's actually really good for them. Obviously punishing. I'll hold that as Avi. It feels like 1 step forward, 2 steps back, right?
But thankfully, we have Dark Passage to be able to get people out into safety when they are in pretty Monka W spots like that one. But at this point in the game, we are just at that 15-minute mark. We have to keep in mind that even though Radiance do want to be able to not fall too far behind, they have this late game insurance in the Kassadin and to some extent the Ziggs as well, because you can always try and stall the game out as long as possible. And when you think about the sieging capabilities of 100 Thieves, their marksmen are pretty short range.
Yeah, especially it's going to take a long time for Senna to get to that infamous point where he just kind of walks up to turret, and then it's like, oh, well, I actually outrange them with RFC. I'm just going to get cullinged right into the back. Kenvy's here.
Man, well, the late game insurance policy means it comes online later. It doesn't come on right now in 15 minutes. And unfortunately, Young Mid was just a little too far overextended, did not know where Kenvy was. And between the culling and the collapse, he gets punished.
Yeah, and it's actually a really bad time for Engo to lose his courage stacks there. Ends up kind of going down. Will not have Meganar for this upcoming fight, as the Ocean Drake is going to go over to the side of 100 Thieves. Not really in a position to answer. And I was going to say that, hey, finding that kill on Tenacity is great. However, when you took a look at the map state, there wasn't much for Radiance to try and punish on. They didn't have priority in mid lane, at least one that was more tangible and something that they could work with. Bot lane was still getting pushed in top side as well, thanks to Copy. And realistically, all that kill from Tenacity does is end up kind of slowing down 100 Thieves' game plan. But all in all, they're still on track to trying to find their win and playing around their win conditions. Tenacity is still incredibly strong, even though he's 1-4. And specifically, I think it's because Avi has not quite hit his mark when it comes to this Lee Sin. We're still looking at Andy Benny to do a lot of great things, but the team fight just doesn't feel like it's connected. I'll hold that auto.
Well, you talk about Andy Bendy looking to step up, and it's kind of hard to do that when you get locked down for 3,000 years between this Maokai and Senna CC chain here.
Interesting. They're using the Nature's Advance. Essentially looking for a dive under the turret, but I don't expect them to go for this.
I mean, they're tangoing with them. They're getting a lot of damage back down on the auto, but the mid lane turret finally will fall as the objective, what 100 Thieves were looking for, is secured. They have abilities to be able to take second fights pretty well, as Engo did just lose the Rage Bar, so he's not going to be able to slam people in the walls quite yet, but 100 Thieves should be patient with this, as Avi still does not have any magic resist, so he's got to fear and have respect for Copy's damage output.
Yeah, Copy's actually incredibly strong at this moment, 160 when we took a look at the opposite side. Copy has also gotten a lot of solo experience without going down relatively early, so looking incredibly strong on the Syndra, is able to pick up the early Sork Pen boots as well as the Nullifying or the Oblivion Orb, so has a lot of magic penetration there for themselves. And like we said early on, there's not a lot of magic resist built for either of these teams. Specifically, I think we were talking about Otto, but he's on your team, you're fine with that, and Thresh is not going to be tanky enough to try to deal with Syndra. So we're kind of getting to that point where we're gonna crest 20-25 minutes, and I think that's where we're gonna potentially see this game start to break open in its entirety, right? Like an egg kind of. At that point, either that's the breaking point there for Radiance and potentially fighting for that Ocean Soul point, or Andy Bendy potentially kind of shows up, and I think Kassadin is starting to make his kind of strides up there. We take a look; he's got an almost fully stacked Rod of Ages. His Tear of the Goddess is not quite, kind of up to snuff, only about 140 out of 750, so it's going to be a long time before we see that Seraph, and a long time before we start to see a Kassadin that is going to kind of step up toe-to-toe.
This does mean that 100 Thieves kind of have a timer on them. They do not want to disrespect the power of a Kassadin scaling up further and further into the late game, so they need to be able to press their advantage. Copy almost getting caught out here by Young Mid and King here, but all that attention towards the bottom side of the map does allow Kenvy to be able to secure this Rift Herald. Chris on the other side, they should be able to use this strategically to be able to take down and unlock the map even further. Being able to choke out the rest of Radiance for being able to access resources such as farm from the jungle camps, as well as being able to split on the side lane safely, is what 100 Thieves need to be able to accelerate the game before it gets way too late.
Yeah, and I'm honestly very confused right now. I'll hold that actually as Engo potentially looking to fight. He has ultimate.
Flash Meganar into wall up. Can he get enough damage with the boulder toss? Even Senna trying to save her husband from across the rift is not going to be enough with that Dawning Shadows. Avi looks to find a beautiful play on the Copy, gets the kick flash, but he's able to flash back into safety, and now it's a 2-on-4. Avi's going to try to run like hell, but there's nowhere to go, and you're getting locked down by the angriest tree alive. Young will be able to trade one back onto Akinoki, but still an overall advantage. for the side of 100 Thieves.
Ooh, actually, Auto even kind of TPing into the mid lane. No one's going to be able there to try to answer
Oh
it. They
my
should get the turret here.
Andy Bendy does get the bomb satchel, and he
It's a different
potentially
Copy.
lives. But Copy does find the Scatter Leak stun onto King, but he wants the greed for Andy Bendy as Kenvi is going to flash over the wall. Andy Bendy, unfortunately, does not have enough damage output to be able to match. And I have to say, it was super hilarious just to see the target priority and the selection. It almost seemed like 100 Thieves were about to get none for trying to greed out for both of them at the same time. But Andy Bendy, being the original target, is picked up by 100 Thieves.
Yeah, great job right there, and they end up picking 4 in the way for 100 Thieves. I was actually about to criticize Radiance in this Ziggs pick. It doesn't feel like they're kind of utilizing it as well as they potentially could. All we're seeing is Otto and Andy Bendy are just trading waves at this point. Ziggs comes in, he throws a couple of, he throws an ability here, he clears the wave there. Otto's like, all right, that's fine. I'm playing Maokai. I'm just gonna AFK sit on this and throw a couple of motes at you, kind of dance. It kind of feels like the Ziggs could have been anything else, and at that point, it calls into question this draft, right? The Ziggs kind of isn't really connecting. All in all, the Mega Inferno Bomb is still doing its job in certain cases, but realistically, you want the Ziggs to push out the wave and look to try and roam, but because of some of the waves, didn't look too hot. I'll hold that Copy getting caught out here, but
Oh, massive 3-man stun on a young mid, and King. Kenvi's going to be able to find the killing blow onto the Kassadin here. Copy will trade his life over to the support for Radiance, but it should still be an overall advantage. However, Engo is currently in Mega Gnar form, so they have to wait out the rage to be able to ensure that they don't get womboed into the wall. Tenacity still looking for King. Does get that kill for free. Otto is keeping Avi busy on the back end of this fight. This is soul point for the side of 100 Thieves and an Ocean Soul to boot, so it just makes them even harder to kill. Tenacity flashes over the wall, but Avi says the only way out is forward, tries to get the kick onto Kenvi, but he's going to pop the Lance Respite at the very last second and will survive the onslaught from Radiance trying to turn things around. Engo finally has full rage, but the numbers are against him. There's no way to be able to turn this one around. And Ocean Dragon and Soul will be picked up by 100 Thieves.
yeah, and that almost entirely seals the game out for Radiance, as Ocean Soul just completely nullifies a lot of the Ziggs pick and the power that they were looking for it. Tenacity is going to be a complete monster in the side wave, which, I mean, to be fair, we've already kind of see him be that, and we even see the Rift Tails kind of just cracks open the mid lane, but doesn't do too much damage. Baron potentially could be the kind of last kind of hurrah here for Radiance if they want to, but Ocean Soul is going to provide an entirely new host of issues and become this new loss condition of theirs, where they're already behind as it is. It's going to be impossible for to find the kills. Engo's TPing in now. Looks like they just want to kill Kenvi.
Kemi doesn't have Flash, and he doesn't have Lance Respite, as he already used it onto the Dragon fight, and despite the odds being against them, Radiance do find an opportune pick. Kenvi just being a little too disrespectful about being super extended into enemy territory. That will prevent the Baron from being taken by 100 Thieves, but Coffee's still trying to turn things around on the young mid, but it's not going to be enough up until Otto finally gets the last tick of damage down. Coffee will have to trade his life for it. We do have Tenacity in the wings as well, looking to be able to cut them off with the flank. This is a very high damage output. Lucian, can he get the damage down? Culling will come out, goes through the battlefield. Engo will eventually fall to Tenacity as he finally gets the last bits of shots in. Avi has finally joined the fight, but things are already too late. There's no Baron up on the table for either team, but Kenvi now having to respawn might be a chance to clear out some vision and then pull Radiance back in for another fight.
Yeah, and we're just seeing 100 Thieves with their chopper flow tempo. They're doing absolutely amazing, and again, Otto is becoming this massive tank that nobody can deal with. Their team is so far behind at this point that they don't have the damage to try to deal with this. We're even seeing from Andy having to kind of early index into Merlinomicon is incredibly dangerous, and because of the way that their team kind of plays out, not only with the Ocean Soul, but also with the amount of the innate healing from Otto's passive, I'll hold that as they try to find the pick on the Avi, but they're just fishing at this point. This is like a fish. This is like hunting fish in a barrel. They're just throwing grenades into the lake.
If that were the case, Ulk Battery, then Otto's clearly the shotgun or the barrel that is encasing. He's basically trapping members of Radiance for easy pickings whenever he can. Otto doing pretty damn well on this Maokai, 3-1 and 12. He did his job being able to receive all the farm from that Senna fasting bot lane as he now looks to engage once again. And Engo just doesn't even get a chance to be able to transform into Mega Gnar. This will mean things are going to be very disastrous for Radiance if they cannot get out of this jungle alive. Youngmin and Avi are waiting on the other side of the red buff wall, looking to make a flank perhaps, but if Otto is there leading the charge and there's no way that they can really find any damage onto the backline, they're going to get pushed out of the jungle here safely. There's a kick from Avi trying to disengage, but Kenvi burns Lancer Spite just before the Mega Inferno Bomb comes in, denying any possibility of a turnaround, and 100 Thieves now pushing Radiance successfully out of the jungle, potentially look at Baron unless, please guys.
No. They're not going to do it. Yeah, the team really never really wants to do Baron. They can just sit here and fish for kills. Goodbye, Andy Bendy. Potentially, Avi's going to be missing. Yeah, it's just that easy, boys. Just beautiful. But yeah, this is.
I don't know if beautiful is what I call it, but you know,
it's for 100 Thieves. It's a symphony of fighting, of brawling, of street fighting. But I mean, this is exactly what they want to do. They have this great team fight comp who doesn't really have to do anything. Hold that.
Oh, beautiful 4-man stun from Copy with the Scatter of the Weak. Hits all members of the Radiance and sends them flying. They have to be able to give up this turret. Engo is at full rage bar if he wants to look for a re-engage. Does have Mega Gnar, but Kenvi and Copy are all going to be taking down Young Mid, who we haven't even gotten a chance to look at item power spikes. He has hit both of them, but it's just not enough. 100 Thieves are just doing so much damn work, and it just seems so easy. Andy Benny managing to trade one back onto Tenacity before Engo does fall, and Kenvi actually is going to get picked up by Avi. Radiance are still trying to not back down from the fight, and 100 Thieves are basically just limit testing at this point to see how far can they go and push this advantage. Deaths from both sides of the fight here, but overall the amount of stats and the gold and the lead that 100 Thieves clearly have is just more than Radiance can handle, and are still able to pick up objectives.
Yeah, that was not the cleanest fight right there. I think that they were just waiting. Actually, TP coming in from Young. The fight never stops.
Well, Young Mid wants to look for something now. It's up against Maokai and Senna. Young Mid should be able to have the damage if he can get onto the backline, but Otto's just so damn tanky on this Maokai. He's able to just hold him back by himself, and if Akinoki has the space, it's just an easy pickup for the Senna.
Rafa, I think you've definitely had the same reaction of taking a look at Senna. You're just like, is that her gun? Like, that's so strange. That was so powerful. But I was going to say that was looking incredibly sloppy for the side of 100 Thieves, just giving over that many kills to the side of Radiance. And yes, you know, they find 4 kills, but a lot of them fall down. They could have been a lot cleaner. Kind of feels like they were kind of getting a little bit lost in the sauce, getting lost in the team fight of it all. But looks like they are going to go for Baron here. If they want, again, they can just have Otto sit right in front of it, and they don't actually have to even kind of finish it. They can always turn off of it. They have great healing with Kindred, as well as the innate healing of Maokai, like I mentioned earlier. And with Ocean Soul and Senna, it becomes really difficult for them to get anywhere close to dying here. Avi goes in. Avi does not go back out.
He tried, Alk Battery. He needed to try and make some type of clutch play. You know, you never know what could happen if he could make a miraculous steal. Unfortunately, it's just not enough. We look at the gold lead. I mean, it's 11,000. Ocean Soul has been theirs for quite some time, and now without a jungler to be able to contest Smite, this should be an Elder Dragon in the bag, and 100 Thieves with this buff should be able to walk down into the base of Radiance. My Jesus fucking Christ! The damage coming out from Coffee is just so insane. Ango was attempting to do a cheeky steal of his own, but I will have to give a lot of credit over to Otto for being able to secure it. Oh wait, what? Tenacity, bro!
What are you
come
doing?
on, man. We have teleports just coming in and out. 100 Thieves are just having a little too much fun. Oh, wait, what is happening? What is happening? Why are you there?
You know what's happening?
Go end the game.
You know what's happening? Radiance is winning or losing the game. It is not looking too pretty. Young has left the game, but it was competitive until it wasn't. It honestly, past about 8 minutes, it got pretty one-sided from the side of 100 Thieves. They got a little bit caught up. I think that could have been a much cleaner of a game. And while we are only in week 3, I think that there could be, if the only complaints are, hey, do that a little bit faster. If the only complaint we have is, hey, can we do that a little bit faster? I think that that's a pretty good complaint to have. But 100 Thieves able to find that win right there and kind of play with their food a little bit towards the end of that game. But yeah, that was I have to say, it was a pretty fun game.
Off battery.
Right.
I don't know what to say, man. It's just
GG.
was it a GG though? The first
It
15
was a
minutes
good
was
game. It was a good
yeah.
game. Look,
First 15 minutes was definitely GG. And arguably even at the 25-minute mark was, but then after, or I would say the last 10 minutes, last 5-10 minutes, it seemed like 100 Thieves were surely able to just close out the game, and they were limit testing. They were just like, you know what? Let's see how far we can turret dive past uh towers and inhibitors, and you know, when you're a team like 100 Thieves, you need to be able to find the time to push your limits in situations like this, because you need to see, you know, if you can end games earlier. And so like I don't disagree with anything that 100 Thieves did, but I will not say that it was a clean game from either
oh, for
team.
sure.
It was definitely very scrappy across both sides.
But that's part of their team composition, right? Like they have to be scrappy. They have to look for fights. They have to try and at least look for something. Specifically, Tenacity, who again was looking really great in the split and was so strong that even in team fights we saw him start to pop off a little bit. And when you have someone like Syndra and Maokai and Senna, you're looking to try and start fights. You're looking to look for picks and make sure that, hey, as soon as fight starts, we're making them as uneven as possible. Whether that be that Tenacity's off in a side lane, pushing, taking turrets, and we're willing to kind of give it up. But even in that situation, even in 4v5s, it felt like 100 Thieves were still a lot more powerful because of just how far ahead they were. You take a look at some of the gold. I mean, they were up 10,000 gold towards the end of that game.
Mhm.
The last stretch of it, and specifically a lot of the key picks that we were looking at for Radiance just didn't kind of shine through. We saw that Andy Bendy, even on the Ziggs, kind of got betrayed in a lot of situations. But more importantly, it felt like the Ziggs picks was not only underused, but kind of used for the wrong reasons. It matched the wave clear, but didn't really get to show up in a lot of fights and really looked to punish Senna and Syndra in them. So I want to see at least, if not only just a pivot, I want to see some kind of a little bit of revitalization, because it feels like they didn't exactly follow their game plan and kind of, once this team gets behind, it's really tough to play out, but there are ways for you to try and get around it.
Mhm. I would argue to see if there's a champion that Young Mid can play that offers a little bit more agency for Avi to play through, because it was only top lane that he was able to operate through and find an advantage. And even then, it's somewhat difficult because that Lucian top can be something scary for Ango to be able to deal with. But as we saw, the amount of detention that he did get allowed Ango to have a solid time laning against him for the rest of the game. He was able to find multiple solo kills on the Tenacity, but it didn't matter because the bottom lane had been so catastrophically swayed in the side of 100 Thieves, and Kenvi just got a lot of free kills as well as copy. And so both of those, being incredibly far ahead just means that Radiance need to be able to contest that early aggression just a little bit more in the draft. But we will find out what Radiance decide to do in terms of pivoting and draft adaptation when we come back. Don't tune away, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back.
It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity. About humanity. It's all about humanity.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? I am Hypertension here behind the scenes, and we will be experiencing a few delays here as one of the players is having some internet issues at the moment. We will restart the stream as soon as humanly possible, but for now, just enjoy the solid music, enjoy these dank memers in the chat, and thank you for watching us tonight. And now, back to your music.
To speak, you're quick to change your mind, and I know it's me that followed you in blind. I could say that you didn't need, but you wanted me. Maybe I was wrong, even want wasn't anything. So if we had another chance, I would never let you steal my lips. Bring me back to life. Don't dig deep like you would have a clue. All I see is how I was a fool to say my heart skip beats thinking about you. Whoa. I could say that you didn't need, but you wanted me. Maybe I was wrong, even want wasn't anything. Yeah, I could say that you didn't need any part of me. Yeah, maybe it's not me, you should be the one on your knees.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for your patience. We're finally getting ready for the draft of Game 2 between 100 Thieves and Radiance. And if you missed out on Game 1, I'll about already tell them what they missed.
Depends on you know, 100 Thieves ends up kind of rolling over Radiance, kind of about as expected for what they did. I thought we saw some interesting things, specifically Engo doing a really great job against Tenacity, which not too out of the ordinary for Tenacity to fall pretty early on into the game, especially for what they tend to pick him. Obviously, almost every single game one for 100 Thieves is Lucian top lane, so at this point, I think teams can kind of lock that in as a solid, as a, just something that's always going to happen. But coming into game 2, I think Radiance actually have a lot to prove. I mean, obviously they're already down one game in the series, but Radiance need to show something. Either pick something a little bit more interesting, or come up with a little bit stronger of a draft identity, because Lee Sin having to play around Ziggs and Gnar and Kassadin is a really massive headache if you're a jungler, and is probably not going to look too well if you're having 3 lanes you need to gank. So I'm kind of expecting for Radiance to hopefully pivot, and if not, then it's looking a little bit dire for them.
Yeah, and speaking about some champions in particular, and obviously if you're 100 Thieves next, which will be red side, they don't really have to change up their bans that much. But Radiance, are we looking at a Lucian ban? Is that the thing that we have to take off the table, or is it something like the Senna, which did enable the Maokai to be in that fasting lane on the bottom side of the map and still give Tenacity wiggle room to be able to flex something more aggressive, something that he prefers in that top lane matchup?
Yeah, we take a even look at some of the bans. So now that we actually have, obviously, 100 Thieves next is going to be on red side, I think it's really key for them that they probably going to look for a red side counter pick either in top side or in bot side as we start to get into the draft sooner rather than later. We take a look at their bans from the last game on red side. Varus seems to be a consistent red side ban, and when you're on blue side, Ornn, Set, Kalista, these are things that kind of tend to stay on there. So I'm waiting to see what Radiance is going to ban. I think that because you're on blue side, you're going to have to pick something really, really strong. I think Aphelios, I think even the Ziggs still can do work, but they need to actually play around the Ziggs and make sure that this is a champion that kind of opens up their team.
And with a potential trouble ban, which is locked in by Radiance, it says to me that Radiance are not comfortable first picking up the Kindred for themselves, as that would be an obvious counterpick matchup that you would be wanting to play against that Trundle. Varus, as you said before, is the common red side ban. Senna being taken potentially off the table if we get that hover in now. Radiance.
I'm so confused.
Yeah. When we're
I'm
looking
so
at like
confused
potential
right now.
first picks, like what is Radiance looking to pivot to based on the ban so far?
I mean, I don't know why if you're on blue side you're looking to ban Trundle. I mean, if like you're saying, unless you're unwilling to play Kindred and or unable to, I don't expect Avi to not have a couple games on Kindred to at least be able to at a playable rate. I think that's kind of a really interesting tell from the side of Radiance. But if you're looking to first pick something, you want to probably pick a strong solo laner here. Syndra just got banned, so we're looking at potentially even blindable jungles, which not going to be too many. I think Ziggs is still a fine kind of blind pick for themselves, because it gives you still a lot of flexibility on other sides, and it does give you that Ziggs priority that potentially Radiance has been looking and keying into more and more. But I think Radiance are going to kind of find themselves in a really awkward position here. It is going to be kind of telling as to what they first pick. Could be jungle. I don't expect for them to start putting priority on their kind of bot side, but there you go. We take that strong solo laner, and it's going to be Ornn.
And Ornn was not available the first time around. If we look back at that first draft, it was the very first ban up top from 100 Thieves. But this time, Kindred is something that can be clearly feels comfortable playing once again. But now, what do 100 Thieves pair it up with on R2 here? Could be looking at supports or 80 carries.
More than likely, it's going to be 80 carry. If not, that they're just going to pick their support again. Nautilus and Leon are still available for themselves, and there's the Aphelios that I was just talking about and getting picked up here. For Radiance, there are still a couple of key things. Kalista has made it through pick ban, and typically this is a champion that does not. kind of make it through the first round of bans, so wouldn't be too surprised to see Andy Bendy put in some more rounds on Kalista. He's looked like an absolute monster on this champion, so wouldn't be surprised if they tend to pick up their bot side here. They do have to kind of make that pivot on, do they pick their jungler here? And like I said, Kalista being kind of locked in here, they could pick their Nautilus or their Leona and kind of, get that all 2-in-1 pack or 2-in-2 package, but wouldn't be surprised to see some kind of engaged support bot lane. Gragas.
Last few seconds. We were seeing a Janna and an Alistar hover to begin with, but not to say that this Gragas couldn't support, but more than likely, Avi is securing something that will be reliable and safe for him to pilot around the jungle into the Kindred. And Gragas doesn't necessarily outright beat Kindred, but in terms of team fighting and skirmishes, that explosive cask will be able to divvy up people when they are trying to use the Lamb's Respite as a last resort. So it is not a straight up champion one-on-one counter pick, but it is a kind of contextual team fight counter pick.
Yeah, early on I am expecting yet again for this jungle to actually get split in half. So again, yet another situation of vertical jungling. Topside going to be completely dominated by the Kindred. But early Braum here is really great into that Ornn. So interested to see what they ban out as we go into the next ban phase. Thresh is going to be the first one taken away by 100 Thieves. Now for Radiance, they still have a lot of kind of key question marks here. Do they want to ban the Lucian again and try to make sure that Ornn doesn't get picked? We actually have seen a lot of games here from the side of 100 Thieves, specifically Copy, putting in work on things like Soraka and Lulu. So wouldn't be surprised to actually see that a potential kind of punishment early on.
Now, but the real question is, we know that Coffee could play the Soraka or Lulu, but
there's no way
Tenacity
to do it. Yeah. There's no way Tenacity's going to do it. I mean, Tenacity is a player who is vehemently against lanes that do not fight. So more than likely going to try and pick up something that could try to punish Ornn early on. From the side of Radiance, they could try to punish another top lane pick here against Ornn. I don't expect for Lucian to be the kind of pick here for 100 Thieves versus that champion. Because later on, especially against a full AP Gragas, it is going to be really rough for you to exist in the side lane as Lucian. Early on, level 3 through 6 is going to be tough. Bot lane, once you try to split up the map and have Ornn sit across, it's going to be very dangerous. 100 Thieves can pick their mid laner here. They can probably, if they want, they can try to pick another. I'm expecting. Okay, I was thinking maybe we see Azir Corki. But Silas, this was something that I was actually a little bit interested in, whether or not they're going to pick it. I saw a couple games on Copy, so could be, that they have a lot of great ultimates they can take. Kalista has to fall off a little bit when you pick up that ultimate, but
the thing you got to remember about the Silas pick is that I can imagine it can be flexed between Copy or Tenacity, and they want to keep Radiance in the dark. They need to be able to see what this mid lane pick from Young Mid will be. Morgana has already been locked in as the support of choice, but what will the mid laner be is the real question as a few more seconds on the clock. Now the part would be really interesting, but I don't know if you want to give point and click suppression to Silas on the other side of 100 Thieves next. Now, Orianna could definitely be a more balanced champion, and it's definitely a lot harder for Silas to make use of it as, the ball would be on top. Now, if we go back to what you were talking about, Dimitri, this is the time. If you want to flex that Silas to the top lane, maybe we get to see one of those support picks mid, the Lulu, the Soraka. Do it, baby. Lock it in.
Don't do this to me.
Yes. Oh my God.
No.
Lulu mid. It's back, ladies and gentlemen, and it's with the fucking vengeance, baby.
All right, this is something that we've been seeing kind of crop up. Specifically, I think Firefire has done a really great job of kind of innovating towards being more of that supportive player. We've seen him time and time again, either whether it be in the more local LWL open qualifiers, we see him play things like Zillion, which is a much more traditional mid laner when it comes to playing that supportive role. But even more recently, even up against Polar Ace, this man pulled out not only Zillion but also the Lulu, and Soraka as well has really just been taking a lot of precedence when it comes to those solo lanes, and especially potentially in bot. But wasn't surprised to see the Lulu is going to be pretty great into this matchup. It makes Gragas his life a living hell, and yet again, you set up a great position where top side here for Kindred is so strong. You have Lulu and Silas, and you can try to play around Kenvi, which is a player that has gotten a lot of resources in a lot of their games.
Honestly, I'm just super excited about this Lulu mid coming to fruition. This is the time where we get to finally see 100 Thieves start breaking the meta and bringing the new trends into the competitive scene for the top of the amateur teams here over on Upsurge, baby. And, you know, if you guys don't remember Lulu mid from back yonder in us boomer days, season 4, season 5, Lulu mid was just able to pretty much negate and nullify any aggressive lane, and especially against something like Orianna, which is basically kind of trying to do the same thing. This is going to be a handshake of a lane between Young Mid and Copy, and he's just going to be a higher income support for Kenvi and Akinoki, being able to provide them extra attack speed as well as on-demand movement speed and shields, and of course that wild growth is going to be incredible utility as we get to those team fights. But I know you want to break down more of the draft off battery, but I do have to cut you off here because we are getting ready for game 2 on the Rift. But we need another word from our lovely sponsors that give us this amazing action and provide everything we got for over here on Upsurge. And it is from, I'm having Kono keyboard. Hang on, I lost my place. Here we go. If you're looking to take your game to the next level, it all starts with your peripherals. From keyboards to keycaps, mice, and more, our friends at Kono have got you covered. Kono works with the world's best designers, inventors, and makers to bring you some of the best gaming peripherals around. Kono have been huge supporters of us here at Upsurge and have made generous contributions to our prize pools. If you need to find a new keyboard, check out the Hexgears X-1 RGB low-profile Bluetooth mechanical keyboard. That's right, we're wireless now, baby. You can now use the discount code UpsurgeGG for 7% off your first order. For more information, head over to kono.store to check out what they all have to offer. That's KONO.store. Kono. Discover amazing products. We'll see you in the next game, ladies and gentlemen.
Gave you too much, now I'm swallowed. Now I'm the fool while you're breaking rules. Dangerous path that I follow. Oh, go on, just do what you do. And it as I bleed for you, cry for you. Let me bleed. As I bleed for you, cry for you. Let me bleed. Let me all of the pain seems to follow like a shadow, dark and cold to the touch. Am I insane not to let go? Oh, what you do. And it hurts as I bleed for you, cry for you. Let me bleed as I bleed for you, cry for you. Let me bleed.
And we are back on the Rift for Game 2, ladies and gentlemen, between 100 Thieves and Radiance. So far, doesn't seem like anyone's going to go for a level 1 cheese or any aggressive invades. It's going to be the 5-man fan across the Rift for both teams.
We're gonna see a little bit more interesting. Like you were saying, this mid lane is gonna be kind of a handshake. Specifically, I think there's not much you can scoff at when it comes to Lulu. Lulu's actually super strong right now, and specifically with that glitter lance, not only is that slow really potent, but the damage on it is nothing to scoff at. So I'd be interested to see if Copy kind of looks to do an early push into this lane. He's taking heal, which is a little bit interesting. Obviously I think into Orianna, he's probably not gonna have too much of a. There shouldn't be too many situations where Orianna getting soloed by Lulu. If there is, we're gonna have to have a different discussion about this champion. But I mean, early on, I'm looking for Avi to actually start to influence lanes because finally there aren't too many lanes he has to play around. I think bot lane is the one where you're looking for Kalista to get early, kind of spike really early on, and try to make sure that Aphelios gets behind early. Not only that, and just prolong his timer. Make sure that he doesn't get to a point where now you're dealing with 200 years of collective game design Aphelios, and just keep him in. Even take a look at that. We're even getting early skirmishes.
Oh, well, it looks like Kenvi and Tenacity have ideas and plans of their own and saying, what's 200 years with just a good old standard traditional invade with superior characters in the top side of the map, and Tenacity and Kenvi should just be able to just manhandle this one. Ango can't do much level 1 as Ornn, and Avi taking W doesn't give him a lot of prowess, no crowd control. He's going to look for the flash over the wall, but he's just put himself in a very bad corner. First blood goes over to Tenacity. Meanwhile, Copy almost 1v1's young mid on the Lulu.
Yeah, I was a little bit worried right there. That is going to spell massive doom right there. It's only about 700 gold going over to the side of 100 Thieves, but Avi, not only his blue buff being taken away, it's like, all right, well, blue buff on Gragas definitely helps and is a little bit painful for you to lose early on, but more specifically, you're losing out on your flash as this Gragas early on, and you're already behind as it is. Bendy getting an exhaust onto himself. But, I mean, we're seeing fighting all across the map, and 100 Thieves, they're saying, hey, we have to restart. Obviously, we're going into game 2 here, but we're going to keep the pace going as if we're back in game 1. So
if I have any sympathy right now, Lock Battery, it's definitely for Avi. It's not fun to be invaded super early on and you're playing Gragas. I mean, yes, you will be useful later on in the game, but God, Kenvi is just not letting Avi play the game right now. He's not only clearing out most of the top camps on the top side of the map here, but Kenvi is now just bullying the crap out of Avi, but Copy might have put himself in a bad spot, has the flash over the wall, thankfully. Avi had already burned his flash in the level 1 invade, so cannot follow up on Copy, but still, Kenvi is trying to use the advantage that Copy was able to gain earlier to push around this matchup further, but King with the roam, because of the 2v2 all-in, Andy, Bendy, and King actually have a lot of agency to be able to start proactively helping Avi and the rest of the map get back into the game.
Yeah, specifically thanks to that, they have to push him out. Andy, Benny, and King not only have that lane priority, they're pushing into Sophios early on, so they are able to at least take that stack away. Sadly, what this does mean is that Avi is going to be in a world of hurt. Aki, stop him. He's just going to say, all right, you're just going to have to smite at this point. Not going to be able to get too much out of it. But Avi, like you're saying, is kind of just playing refugee at this point. He is like, please, I'm scounging for farm. And we're seeing that top side split again, where Kenvi, all he has to do, he's already pressured him out of his bot side. So now he goes into top, takes all of his camps. And finally, Avi is going to kind of crest over that 10 CS mark for jungle, which you'd expect is not that hard, considering every minion's about 4. He is in a world of hurt right here. Thankfully, none of the resets have come out early on for either jungler, so they're not gonna, there isn't at least an item disadvantage quite yet. We're even seeing Engo's gonna get pushed on this next wave. He has to survive. He does have flash, but
They have to play this dive correctly. Engo is able to burn his own flash, and Tenacity will exchange his as well. And Kenvi was able to get the stack. Meanwhile, on the bot side of the map, Andy Benny is taking things into his own hands. And this could be a salvaging light that Radiance need to be able to operate under, since this is right now the only lane that seems to be winning right now.
yeah, good bot. I mean, that's exactly what you want to see from this lane. That's exactly what they need to do, where Andy Benny is not only pressuring onto Aki, he got him to get him an early back. He has 20 CS up, and now he's found himself with a kill and that level lead. So Kindred is Callista is finding herself with those early leads, but it's coming at a specific expense, right? Where Avi thankfully is the one that's down and isn't really kind of being the one that has to be played around this time around. But looks like they're trying to set up into mid lane. They have a bunch of river wards here. Kenvi did go for a reset, and potentially even seeing Avi. Otto's gonna have to stay here. If he goes for a reset, this blue has to just completely force.
Copy, despite being pushed in by Young Mid. Ooh. That was close. Had to pop the heal since he didn't have flash to be able to get the extra movement speed to dodge out on a potential dark binding. It would have comboed beautifully into the shockwave from Young Mid. As Copy was trying to contest that a priority that Young Mid was using to be able to move in and allow Avi to try and take some of these camps back that Kenvi has stolen from Avi earlier on into the game, but 2 levels up on the Gragas right now. I mean, at least Avi can still influence the map with Body Slam and Predator if he doesn't have Flash, but just as a jungler, it just feels so crappy to be this far down early on into the game, as got a couple of all-ins coming out from top lane as well as bottom lane as well. Otto taking a lot of damage. Akinoki might have bitten off more than they could chew. King should still have Dark Binding. Does finally land down. The heal comes out. Akinoki's trying to trade back as much damage as he can, but the spears are there, and the Ren damage is enough for Andy Vandy to turn things around. Meanwhile, in the river, we got another 2v2 going on. Alk Battery. Shockwave barely misses on Kenvi as he's able to just flash over on top of it. Outplays it completely. Wild Growth is giving him enough health he needs, but the marksman that Radiance need to be able to turn it around is going to be coming from Andy Bendy roaming from the bottom side of the map. I'm tripping over my words, and they're tripping over the corpses of 100 Thieves as Andy Bandy picks up the double kill.
Yeah, amazing job right there. And now Andy Benny kind of in a more comfortable situation. He got his power turned off, but it feels like he's online now. He's got himself that 4 OP. He's able to find that kill, and that felt like a really awkward position. I'll hold that as Tenacity potentially going down to call the Forge God.
Well,
gotta love the Burst Assassin right there.
You know, if all chat was turned on right now, Tenacity would be saying something along the lines of, yes, tank players are so talented, as it was something similar to what he was talking about in the pre-draft, giving a little trash talk towards this general state of top lane. But, oh man, Tenacity, I know you like playing these carry top laners, but Ornn is a tank assassin burst mage. He's just one of those champions you could just never disrespect in terms of damage output.
Yeah, and also he was just in a really awkward position right there. Silas has received a few nerfs at this point where he's not as strong as he was, and even the itemization wasn't quite there for Tenacity. So now that early lead is now going over to the favor of Radiance, and all in all, it's actually looking like a lot better of a game, even with that early jungle kind of deficit towards the beginning of that game for Avi. But the other lanes have really started to step up. Not only has Young, found himself some good kind of roam potential, didn't go exactly as planned, but even with that, Andy is specifically pushing in this Aphelios, and I think specifically the 100 Thieves bot lane is looking a little too eager at this point. Stepping up right there, and specifically Otto looking for a trade against Morgana is always incredibly dangerous. Not only does she have, it's just generally a poke mage and will kind of lock down Braum, but it also has the Glacial Augment, which is incredibly difficult for melees and early ADs to deal with. And we're already seeing it with Andy Benny with this exhaust. It becomes incredibly difficult for you to look for these trades. So now we see the entire top side of 100 Thieves looking to collapse onto this. Rift Herald going into that early top side. Copy is here as well. looks like they're going to try and get as much gold into the solo laners here for 100 Thieves next.
3-on-1. They're just looking for turret plates. They don't actually go for the
waves.
dive. So Ango gets to hopefully relieve a bunch of the anxiety that he might have had having to stare down 3 champions trying to take him down and deny him all of this farm. But, you know, thankfully on this Ornn, he's able to survive. He does lose a bunch of turret plates, but Tenacity still trying to take these trades. I'm not sure if this is really advantageous for you right now. You have to remember what happened last time in the same situation. Ango was able to burst him from 50 to 0 quite quickly once the ultimate came back up. But we do have to point out that Avi, despite the Rift Herald going on to the top side of the map, was able to secure a Mountain Dragon for the side of Radiance.
Yeah, Ornn has to call for a recall here. He knows with not a lot of vision that they are going to possibly return to this top side. They have no vision as to where the copy is.
Exhaust comes out from Otto, trying to dissuade Andy Bendy from all-inning Akinoki, looking for a couple more spears, but the Rend will not follow. But still, have to be very careful as Avi, now back on the map, looking towards the bot side, realizes that his clear objective is to try and protect Andy Bendy at all costs and ensure that this Callista can take over the game.
Yeah, able to pick themselves up some more when it comes to that gold for turret plates. We even see that copy is coming down in a really dangerous position.
Avi, wah. You hate to see it. And King might be in a bad spot as well if Copy is able to just run him down with a couple more auto attacks and Glitter Lance. There's nowhere to go. Style points, ease onto the minion for the extra range. And just like that, as we are praising the moment for Radiance to be able to come back into the game. I mean, to be fair, Andy Bendy, which is where all the gold is right now, was not with them. So Avi just being a little too greedy, trying to take things that clearly didn't belong to him.
Yeah, it feels so weird when yet again Radiance gets caught out for essentially getting their hand caught in the cookie jar. They go to try and go for this kind of cheeky play where, yes, they have the bot lane of 100 Thieves kind of pinned up against the wall. They can't do anything. You have a Predator Gragas coming through, but you say, okay, look, you got the free back right there. Anybody's really not in a position with no mana and a kind of blinking health bar to really try to respond. So you just go, you back off, you don't have your bot lane right there, and specifically the bot lane, your support and your jungler get taken down, and you're not only giving gold, but you're accentuating that lead that Kenvi has right now. Thankfully for the side of Radiance, 100 Thieves has not really been able to kind of key in on this jungle matchup right now because Kenvi, or specifically Avi, has done an absolutely impressive job with avoiding the Kindred. I'll hold that as...
What happens when 2 Ornn horns collide, baby? Wait, but Ango was able to still get his out in time. He's able to take down Tenacity. Kenvi will be able to pick up the kill, but has the flash and pop the Lance Respite. Young Mid is going to be able to follow, however, because Daze Rush was proc, and he's running fast, baby, and he takes Kenvi down.
How does... You know what? I've stopped trying to question certain champions being able to do that. I was actually impressive, and Young doing a great job to not only follow up, but then punish 100 Thieves. I'll hold that now as Andy Bendy yet again playing aggressive. Wild Growth had to come out from Copy in the mid lane, but really great job there from the side of Radiance, and Engo yet again now able to try to accentuate his ability to play weak side, and even specifically, it might not even be weak side. I'll hold that as TP comes out. They're just trying to pressure him away. Ultimate comes out.
Wow. The flash came out from Akinoki. He was looking for the
Oh, what else impression? That was pretty good, dude. I like that. The Moonlight Vigil.
Wow.
Old Aphelios would have landed that 1600 range on the Moonlight Vigil. He would have hit that.
As a former Aphelios main, tell me how much it hurts to see those plays happen.
1300. It's balanced because his champion's not, but it definitely hurt when you're missing about 300 range on the ultimate. But I mean, I'm sure Avi is really loving that because the Graviton would have just spelt doom right there. He has to back again right here, and they're just getting completely poked out. Otto has to go for a reset here. Thankfully, we still have about a minute till the Cloudric, which obviously both of these teams want to fight over. Specifically, Engo and Avi are just praying to God that he can try and get this. Kind of looking. We have at least I hope a few minutes before we get some action. But Andy Bendy, we take a look at some of the important itemization. Both of the junglers have finished their jungle item, and Engo's in an incredibly strong spot, level 11, as well as able to pick himself up that Abyssal Mask. When you take a look at this team on the side of 100 Thieves, you're actually lacking a lot of early damage. You're trying to play around this Silas, who has already fallen behind just a little bit, and Lulu, who realistically is only going to be able to put out so much damage for kind of a more supportive pick.
which already has, or a copy, I should say, already has Rod of Ages completed. And then if we go based on the solo queue records for copies Lulu, should be looking at the Athene's Unholy Grail and then Ardent Center to follow up. So Rod of Ages being a
Athene's is nuts, bro.
yeah, I think Thieves is a pretty nuts item. I mean, when we look at champions like Nidalee, who should be looking to build super aggressive AP items and naturally wants just builds Athene's Unholy Grail as a second item, just goes to show how balanced the item is and how cost efficient it is as well, being able to make champions like Lulu mid just work really well as top side. It should just be an exchange of hands right here, but Kenvi is prepping a dive with copy. I feel like we've seen this like 4 times now, and with Lamb's Respite, they want to make this dive happen much more securely. Kenvi is the one tanking turret, and they're not going to pop Lamb's Respite. They will just use the Wild Growth to be able to make sure that Kenvi can save his ultimate for the more important team fight.
Yeah, 30 seconds. They don't have a lot of wave clear here, so going to be yet another turret going down. Rift Herald should be in favor. Actually, I'll hold that. Ignite comes out onto Kenvi.
Kenvi still not popping the Lance Respite, should be fine, but it will delay them and deny them from being able to take the Rift Herald as Radiance, using the power of Andy Bendy on this Callista with the Blade of the Rune King, as well as the Executioner's Calling, ensuring that there's not going to be any clutch heals coming in. At least it will be diminished in terms of power.
Yeah, and look at how strong Radiance looks when they're playing around Endybendium, and specifically when this bot lane is able to find advantages for themselves. If you allow this lane to try to play in a specific manner, I think Radiance looks incredibly strong, but in these kind of picks where, more specifically, they're not playing, all around them, and they're kind of set themselves up with a really wonky draft situation, you kind of end up in a situation where Radiance tends to lose themselves a little bit. So now we see the Rift Herald here. This is an absolutely beautiful surf here, and I think 100 Thieves kind of got caught with their pants down a little bit. They kind of feel like they're still trying to look for rotations here. Specifically, Aki is kind of far behind at this point, so they're just trying to shovel as much gold into certain members as possible. And while they have shut Engo down, at least between him and Tenacity, I think they're doing an absolutely beautiful job with rotating the rest of their members on the side of Radiance.
Rift Herald's able to take the top tier 1 turret and get some damage onto the second tier turret. Radiance are now in a great advantageous position in the top side jungle. Young mid is actually going to get preemptively exhausted by Otto, but bro, there's no one there to follow you up. Lamb's Fight hasn't been caught out, but there is the explosive cast. And why we see the Gragas into the Kindred, it's not for the early 1v1, it's for the utility later on. And Andy Bendy, it is just way too damn easy for him to kite around the members of 100 Thieves. Copy getting engaged on by Engo as well in the bottom side jungle, should be able to disengage as now that the Wild Growth was exchanged for the Call of the Forge God. But just right there, Alk Battery, we see power of Andy Bendy and Radiance playing around this character in particular.
Yeah, they're doing a fantastic job right now with this, where they're able to not only punish it, but then just completely kind of run through the game with it. Not only getting themselves in a lead, but Andy Bendy is just kind of running this game right now. He is the kingmaker at this point. He is the Merlin of this game, and he is looking to try and at least he knows all evil, but is kind of just trying to search down. And specifically with kind of the weaker members on this team being Copy and Aki right now, they're waiting to kind of scale up. They're looking for more carry members. And I think with the role that Kenvi has played, and like we mentioned earlier, how Avi has just been avoiding him, I think that this Kindred matchup has really gone in favor of Radiance and making sure that, all right, well, Kenvi is super far ahead. Stay away from him. Make sure that he doesn't get enough in terms of lead when it comes to kills and setting other laners behind. And suddenly, we've nullified this lead. Yes, he's 2 down, but realistically, Avi is looking to just try and use his ultimate to not only displace, but also put down damage on certain members. And if they are already kind of hurting for items, this just makes it a lot easier and kind of nullifies that lead.
Radiance have recognized that Avi is not the carry here, clearly. And so, just continuing to drive that point home is that it sucks as a jungler, and I hope other people realize this when they're playing solo queue. It's like, if you are 2 levels down, it is not the end of the world. If you have a very strong Callista who is 6-0, your job is just to protect them at all costs and ensure that they don't die. And that is exactly what Avi's doing. So it might not be the most fun and prideful thing to be losing the 1v1 matchup, but we see Kenvi going in all in on the Engo, but just, I mean, Ornn damage is balanced, guys. 200 years of game design. Now he comes in, body slam flash into Shockwave. That's going to spell the death sentence for Auto, but Tenacity looks to turn things around as he grabs the Call of the Forge God of his own. But where the hell are you going? He's not even able to make use of the ultimate. And just like that, Radiance turned things around. Triple kill coming in for Young Mid, and Copy got nowhere to go as Andy has already come over the wall, will put 1,000 spears and more and rend and shank them out, taking Copy down.
Yeah, job right there. 4 kills right there for the side of Radiance, and this team is looking incredibly strong when not only does their bot lane have a presence, Engo is playing incredible weak side this time around. Tenacity not able to take advantage of him and make sure that, hey, we're just going to shore up all our weaknesses right there. It feels like a completely new Radiance, and it feels like one where the trap no longer kind of puts them at a massive disadvantage. So taking a look, Andy Bendy not only getting 7 kills, or 7 kills, we take a look at that, right? We take a look at that fight. It was kind of one-sided for the most part. I mean, we take a look at his gold. He's 9,000. He's reached a 10. He's reached Mr. 10K. 10K.
He's rich.
Oh my god, Market. It's 10K Andy. It's 10K Andy.
It is 10K Andy.
He got almost 3,500 gold right there for himself, and this is what we were looking at when we were looking in draft. Yes, this team composition from 100 Thieves Next looks great on paper, but you need to be able to execute, and specifically, you need to make sure that you're not falling behind with this Aphelios. Aphelios is incredibly feast or famine right now with where he's at in his development, where if he's ahead or going even, this champion feels so unbalanced to play against. But when he's falling behind, just like other AD carries, it's going to feel awful. You're going to feel like a cannon minion. And, I mean, with just how much utility is packed into his kit, there's only so much that you can try to squeeze out of this. They need to play around Kenvi, and I just don't think, I mean, specifically, I'd like to kind of keynote on Copy here. He does have his Rod of the Ages. Athenes is available to himself. It seems like 100 Thieves are trying to scale for a fight here. But who does Tenacity fight? And a lot of 100 Thieves' strength comes from whenever Tenacity is very strong and is able to pressure on side waves. But he can't do that. So now you're stuck in this position. We really can't find anything. And now the Moonlight Vigil comes out. They're looking for a pick, but no one's in position. And yet again, 100 Thieves kind of feel lost in this game.
It's a moment of desperation from 100 Thieves as they're just trying to scrounge for any easy picks. Young Mid is obviously going to throw out the Shockwave and flash away. I mean, Kemi doesn't burn anything realistically there, and it does get some important cooldowns off of the mid laner for Radiance, but there's no Baron to take right off the top. And the mid lane priority is in favor of Radiance and Kemvi. I would not stay here or approach this angle. You have to... A lot of the tools need to obviously be hit down on Andy. There is no QSS. There's no Mikhail's Crucible to get him out of any situations if he is CC chained. Unfortunately, the only reliable crowd control that you have is from Akinoki being able to land an auto attack or the Moonlight Vigil and then comboing that into Gravitum. Copy has to get a ring.
Right? That's 1 in 6 guns.
Yeah, it's just 1 in 6 guns. So if we have to look at other ways, Tenacity has to land the Abscond Abduct. He has to be able to grab a powerful ultimate and actually be able to use it in the fight without getting blown up. Maybe Copy has to flash polymorph him, and even then, it's still not going to be enough. There's just no reliable way to lock down Andy for a succinct amount of time that 100 Thieves can burst him down.
Yeah, and specifically, while this composition for 100 Thieves does great into team comps that want to go in on them, they want them to come into them sort of like a, you know, they want champions to come and fight them. Specifically, Ornn and Gragas, champions like Silas and Lulu thrive in these situations. But when Andy Bendy is kind of being this like third man that's unaccounted for, it becomes really difficult. I'm assuming that, you know, 100 Thieves, they were willing to at least say, hey, Callista somehow made it through pick ban, and that's kind of a bot lane that is going to go in their favor, but hopefully Tenacity can try and take it to them. We didn't end up seeing that. We didn't see that kind of play out. Now they've got themselves the Ornn ultimate. It's about a minute before Baron, so I think it's really odd that you're stealing this now. You're just trying to set up a death rush, but now 100 Thieves going to be able to come through and clear out vision. We're going to have to watch how this next fight kind of plays out, because I think if we see yet another Radiance win, it almost locks it up. I'll hold this now. Oh.
Call of the Forge God from the side of 100 Thieves does not find a spark on the King, and even then, he still had the Black Shield to be able to protect him from any crowd control. Kemby
Oh
has
my
to pop the Lancer's Fight, and now there's an advantageous teleport flank coming in on the backside. Ango is there, hasn't popped Call of the Forge God, finally finds Nakam on the copy. Otto is separated from the rest of the team, is not going to be able to live for much longer. Young Mid finally gets the killing blow. Tenacity flashing over the wall is not going to be enough. Kemby trying to put the damage down, but they find Andy! Akinoki might be online, but he's under the turret, and the Severum is not going to give him enough lifesteal to be able to live for much longer. Copy flashes away from Engo, but he's going to follow in pursuit with a flash of his own. Needs to get one more Q or a W for the Brittle. He needs to be able to proc it, but Copy is running away. It's not phase rush, but it's enough movement speed from the Whimsy, and he will be able to survive.
Yeah, and that was an amazing gun combination. Not only does Aki not only have the chakram, so he's able to put out massive amounts of AoE damage, he goes right from Infernum, getting that massive ultimate with a whole bunch of AoE damage. Then he goes right into Severum, an amazing gun combo. We see him playing massively aggressively. He's able to pick up a bunch of kills. Not only is he able to find the kill, he gets that kill onto Callista and gets himself a nice 1,000 gold bounty. So he is still down about 2,000. Hold that as Avi. Beautiful flash right there to avoid Tenacity. And then yet again, we're seeing the Dragon Soul now go over to the side of Radiance. And that was looking like a flash in the pan. A lot of gold has finally gone back over to the side of 100 Thieves. Maybe about 3,000. Take a look at that.
Wait, Andy? Was that just an auto attack and run? Because that thing...
Yeah, I think it's a Q run. And they're actually starting up the Baron. A lot of members have reset Young is now TPing in.
Well, could be a Hail Mary from the side of 100 Thieves, but they have to pull off now. A lot of the team fighting ultimates are up, and Aki gets caught by the shockwave, and Call of Forge God is going to be able to get there with the follow-up damage as well. Ango, look at this guy. Why are you even playing Darn the first game? Just run it back on Ornn, baby, because it's doing enough for Radiance to be able to come back. Kemby now on the run. Andy is going to use the Fate's Call to try and pull King into a more advantageous spot, but there is nowhere for Kemby to go that he can safely recall. He might as well execute the tower, or I mean, if he wants to stall it out long enough, but Baron should be secured here for Radiance.
Yeah, great job from them. Oh, Kenvi. No!
Oh my god. This
The Lancer's Fight versus Morgana, boys. That's how you know you're in really desperate times. You have to just try and avoid on the support right there. So, to the side of 100 Thieves, they're probably just going to have to try and pressure for this mid turret, but have to go for an early back here. Amazing job from Radiance. Able to find that kill, and specifically, even with Copy, we're taking a look at kind of a perfect team fight right there. You have Aki kind of set up with the Severum, with Calibrum on the Sniper, making sure that when you have the Chakrams, you're able to put down a whole bunch of damage, but the Wild Growth comes out a little too late, and one of the carries, one of your marksmen, is not fully kind of being empowered right there. You're looking for one of them to play more of a low econ style, where you have someone like maybe the Aphelios, who's able to kind of get a whole bunch of buffs and look very strong, while you have Kindred, who's just naturally strong by herself, doesn't need a lot of resources. But it seems like we kind of got the flip, the inverse of that, where you have a massive kind of gold hungry champion who is now starving, and you have Kenvi, who's so far ahead, but really can't do anything with it. And you were thinking, oh, maybe that's the fight. We were saying, you know, after that mid lane fight, we go right into that Baron. Potentially, this is where Radiance is going to look to be very strong. But now with Baron, now with his Infernal Soul, it's looking really dangerous here, as now Radiance for the next few minutes will be able to just freely siege onto a lot of this. Tenacity might be in a really dangerous position here. He doesn't have flash. He has Call of the Forge God, probably going to use it to clear the wave, but oh my god.
Moly, the damage, Kemby, you got to be careful, brother. I mean, you cannot disrespect the amount of burst that is coming from Radiance. I thought that was a Q from Andy and a Dark Binding.
Yeah, that was just Dark Binding there from Morgana. That is feels really rough. Looks like they're gonna try to go onto Avi, more than likely just trying to clear this out. With no Moonlight Vigil, it's incredibly difficult to try to fish for an engage.
It's very bad that they are not able to use the Call of the Forge God on their side, because Engo still has one in the back of his pocket. Kemby is going to try to chase out Avi, but Kemby, you've got to worry about bigger problems, my man. You've got this Ornn that is a one-man tank machine, and Andy on this Callista, who is just raining down terror from the other side, taking down this bottom lane inhibitor, now poised to look and control the middle side as well. Engo Now on the back foot as Kenvi and Otto are pushing forward. They're split up, but if Andy makes the rotation, it will be lights out for 100 Thieves, as now that it is a dance between both of these squads as Radiance are on the grasp of being able to take a game off 100 Thieves and potentially come back in this series, something that has not been done yet in UPL. And King finds Kenvi, wipes him out. That's the jungler down for 100 Thieves. It's a 5-on-4. Shockwave clips Copy. Wild Growth will be able to give him a little bit of temporary assistance, but just like that, oh my god, it's a disaster. So much damage for the side of Radiance. Andy does fall, but the rest of the members of Radiance are still alive, and it's just tenacity. Can Radiance close this game out and bring it to a game 3?
Oh no, tenacity. He has the fates call with no one alive. They shouldn't be able to end this game. Their Baron has run out, and they are specifically Young is running out on mana, so this will just be 2 inhibitors. Kenvi is coming up quite soon. But man, it is getting a lot closer here for the side of Radiance to try and close this one out, right? Specifically, if Andy goes down, we're looking at a game where it's a lot less even, and ooh, it's getting super close here. But I mean, they're about 7,000 gold out. In all cases, this should just be a nice closeout within the next few minutes here for the side of Radiance. But I mean, realistically, we take a look at that siege, and it's just so difficult for all these short-ranged members to deal with. You have Copy, who doesn't have great wave clear. You have Aki, who, while he is very strong right now, and he's able to pick himself up here the rapid fire cannon, give himself at least a little bit of range to try and deal with Andy Bendy. He had the Infernum and still does not clear through waves whatsoever. And you have someone on the opposite side like Andy, who's not only 2 and 12, he's got himself a massive gold lead and level lead, but he's just going to tear through all these weak minions right now. So on the opposite side for 100 Thieves, it comes up in this question, like, who is able to really step up against the wave and try to at least pressure? Because there's not many. I mean, Tenacity's far behind. Kenvi, like we just saw, just goes missing when, you know, Morgana and King are just kind of fishing for bindings. And realistically, where has this lead gone against Avi?
That Kenvi just needed to do much more than what he actually was able to achieve. And it's already hard when the bottom lane from the side of 100 Thieves collapse faster than Kenvi has a chance to be able to restabilize that side of the map. I mean, they were very set on trying to accelerate as much as gold they could on the top side from Engo on this Ornn, but I mean, we talk about Andy being a huge clutch player for Radiance, being able to win handily this lane alongside King. But Engo needs to have a lot of credit deserved over his way as well, because he received so much attention and he is just doing just fine.
Yeah, he's playing a perfect weak side right now. And to be fair, he is playing Ornn, so realistically, you can just completely get blown out in laning phase and get to level 11, and it's like, all right, guys, I'm here. Just scratch, you know, laning phase out of your minds. But he's doing amazing right here. And when we were coming into this match, we were taking a look and saying, you know, it's up to Radiance. Specifically, it's up to 100 Thieves to try to perform. And right now, I kind of keynoted that, hey, 100 Thieves does tend to fall apart sometimes, and they do get a little bit lackadaisical, and that could be potentially, I'll hold that now.
Oh my god. Kenvi body slam flash, and there's no Lamb's Respite to follow up. There's just no way that Kenvi is able to actually get out of that one alive. And Tenacity throws himself to the wolves as a means to protect Copy, but he's easily going to be run down by the members of Radiant. And ladies and gentlemen, we got a series on our hands. Akinoki is going to get run down as well, but Tenacity has already left the match. It's over. Game 2 is done, and we're going to Game 3 very soon.
Yeah, that was a really impressive match, and specifically, 100 Thieves have a lot of questions that they need to answer here. This was something that, hey, we were looking at 100 Thieves more than likely going to 2-0, but there were a lot of questions here for Radiance. Were they going to be able to perform on the back end of that fight? Were they going to be able to perform coming into this match? Because there were a lot of eyes on them, making sure, hey, is this a team that, you know, on paper, when you take a look at the Radiance brand, you're saying, hey, this is a really strong organization, typically put forward really strong teams. I know before the series we were saying, Radiance not looking too strong. They still have a couple of fumbling, a lot of fumbling that they've been doing the past couple of weeks, but this is where their bread and butter has been. And I think the only time that they kind of deviate from that is when they do it to themselves. It's not like, hey, they get, drafted in a lot of situations, but when they put themselves in really awkward positions, it's there that we see, Radiance start to fall apart. So I love this draft. It's a lot more standard. It's a lot easier to execute. And I mean, we just saw it. Okay, I mean, 100 Thieves, they got caught in the trap. They're saying, hey, we're going to fight all the time. Tenacity, in theory, this is a great matchup for him as the game goes later and later. But, I mean, Ornn wants you to try and break him in the lane. And try as they must. It kind of feels like the wolf trying to blow down the brick house.
If you look at the damage charts alone, I mean, the closest to out damaging on Radiant or 100 Thieves side was Akinoki, and he still got out damaged by Ango's Ornn,
Okay, to be fair,
18,200. And I know they were fighting a lot, Alk Battery,
he's
but
got
it's just,
Dragon Soul. Come on, he's got Dragon Soul. You press ult, you press Q to get a Dragon Soul like AoE proc. Come on, man. You get to also play against 3 members top lane. They're
200 years versus 200 years. I guess it's not,
yeah.
it's not a loss either way. But the Andy being a massive player this game, being able to I don't want to say single-handedly because it was a team effort between him and King.
Oh, he definitely single-handedly carried. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, he carried through bot lane. I mean, we took a look at 15 minutes. And I think it was like 10 to 15 minutes. Andy Bendy took bot turret, roamed mid lane, took the mid lane turret, and with that, we see Avi get Rift Herald, and they go straight into transitioning into top turret, and they take 3 tier 1 turrets in the span of 5 minutes. Incredible, and only possible because Andy Bendy's not only playing incredibly well and has a massive lead, but has also just been given Kalista, arguably one of the stronger ADCs on this patch, who's on permanent ban situation.
Yeah, we even go back to the moment where Kenvi and Copy were trying to turn that 2v2 onto Avi and Young did die early on, but then we saw Andy, who had just finished taking down Otto in their 2v2, instead of pressuring the turret, comes straight to the river and picks up the easiest double kills he's ever received in his entire life. And the snowball was cemented from that point on. And going into this next draft, Alk Battery, we now know that Kalista is something that 100 Thieves have to respect. But is there anything else on the table that you think needs to be accounted for?
I still think that the Lulu is perfectly fine. But I think we just need to set up Tenacity with a much stronger top lane pick and get rid of these tank top laners that are pretty matchup blind for the most part. You want to make sure you set Tenacity up with a strong laning matchup, something that has really strong split push as well.
Well, we're going to find out what the final draft is as we get ready for Game 3. Ladies and gentlemen, don't tune away. We'll be right back.
too much, now I'm swallowed. Now I'm a fool while you're breaking rules. Dangerous path that I follow. Oh, go on, just do what you do. And it hurts as I bleed for you, cry for you. Let me bleed.
We are back, ladies and gentlemen, and we're getting ready for Game 3 between 100 Thieves and Radiance. If memory serves correctly, Radiance is so far the only team this season to have taken a game off of 100 Thieves. So hats off and congratulations for them so far. But can Radiance be the first team to take a series off of 100 Thieves?
Yeah, I think that's the real question on everyone's mind. I don't kind of expect Callista to go through this time around, and I think if that is the case, I think it'd actually be really interesting to potentially see Andy Bendy pull out the legendary Draven. This guy has shown beforehand that he can actually really hard kind of be that carry for his team, and I think Draven would be really key for him if they're going to do that. 100 Thieves, they are on blue side this time around, so they will be able to first pick themselves whatever they want. They won't have to kind of deal with the red side having to permanently ban certain champions. And I think comes into question, do we see Trundle stay on this ban train? He has been banned both of these games. I don't expect for Radiance to kind of let up. And if that's the case, what do we see from them? Because I don't expect for them to try to reach for the Trundle and Gragas again when it comes to that matchup. I think that they are probably more than likely going to switch back to much more aggressive Kindred Lee Sin or even Kindred Elise. But now we're going to have to see kind of what comes through. I mean, Ornn getting through the ban is surprising as Callista getting through, but we're going to have to wait and see. 100 Thieves now going into the draft.
Well, 100 Thieves, what is the first ban? If we go back to draft 1, it was an Ornn ban, and tale as old as time, Malk Battery. We might see a lot of similar bans here, as both the Ornn and the Callista were banned in the first game of the day. Those are the two things that fell through the draft, as you mentioned in Game 2, so maybe those are just going to be the same two bans as 100 Thieves receive that bars ban from the side of Radiance.
Yeah, and so if you know all things stay the same, if Radiance being on red side and banning out, then we're gonna see Trundle and Set from them being taken away, and then 100 Thieves gonna just take away that Graves. I think then we just kind of look towards the draft and say, what does 100 Thieves pick first? Syndra is still available on the table, praying that it doesn't get banned. They can maybe even first pick a tank flexible top laner. More than likely, they're not gonna go to Tenacity because this man is not gonna play tanks up there. I mean, I'm interested to see if Radiance actually ends up banning Senna this time around, because if that is the case, then it leaves up for 100 Thieves to play that Senna yet again and allow for Akinoki to play a little bit more supportive, but allows them to have some sort of engage. Because if Tenacity is not going to play these engaged champions, Set being the closest thing to it, I think that it is going to have to come from either support or jungle, and more likely than not, I don't think that we're going to see Kenvi on something like Jarvan.
Now, I do want to divert your attention to the first change in the draft phase between 100 Thieves and Radiance. It is, instead of a Graves ban from 100 Thieves, it was a Syndra ban, which means that their first pick priority, as they are showing now, is for that set. Now, we know that Tenacity would love to take this set. However, Gangplank is something that Ingo could always play into it, or the Gnar as well, and it's not the most ideal matchup, but I know Poom in the past has played set in the support role, but it's Otto, it's not Poom, so I don't know if Otto has any experience on this set support and still could flex it.
There it is. Yeah, I think that maybe 100 Thieves may have showed their hand a little too soon. I'm hoping that this set doesn't go support, only because if you're going to go up against Thresh, this is a really great matchup for them on the side of 100 Thieves, but it is kind of telltale that if we're probably going to index into Senna here, thanks to it not being banned this time around. Senna, please. Okay, if it is going to be Senna bot, then this just locks in Set to be in that support role. Unless 100 Thieves are looking to pivot there, but more than likely just going to pick up a really strong solo jungle here. Kindred's still available, something that's constantly seeing play. They could pick something like a mid laner here, but this set Senna lane is so difficult, and I think it makes the thresh on Radiant's side really, really difficult to deal with.
Zoe is the lock-in of choice for 100 Thieves next. We're not going to get another Lulu, fortunately, but it, according to Game 2, it didn't really work out well for them because the composition clearly, they were dealing with other problems at hand, mainly that Ornn and the Kalista, which are not present here, but they want to ensure that Copy does get a strong mid laner that can proactively play through. And there's plenty of junglers that Kemby feels comfortable enough that he doesn't need to first rotation grab a jungler. Orianna being picked up by Radiance means now the ban phase has begun, and Lucian is the first one off the table.
Yeah, I think now if we're taking a look at bans or what Radiance is looking to pick up next, you want to pick up these champions that are incredibly resistant to poke. Because when you look on the opposite side, you have Senna and Zoe on the opposite side who are going to be looking to just try and whittle your health bar slowly as the game continues to go forward. And so you want to make sure that you have champions that are not only resistant to that, but can also burst out Senna. I think thanks to Orianna being picked, I would have loved to have seen Ziggs, but thankfully we don't have to see that. I'm expecting for Radiance to try to now go towards more tanky top laners. I think Maokai could be interesting. Like you're saying, Gnar actually punishes Zoe and the Senna incredibly well. Set would be a way to try to counteract that play, but now when we take a look at these bans, 100 Thieves are just trying to take away really hard engaged champions. I even think Gragas would be really interesting for them to take away early on.
Yeah, because we saw how Avi was still able to be useful despite being, arguably speaking, put in the dirt early on with that invade from Kenvi and Tenacity. But just having that explosive cast just provides enough utility to be the frontline engage. And now with Gragas off the table, we look, does Avi want to pick up something like the Lee Sin? It is something that he did play earlier in the series, and it's something that is a favorite of his. Honestly, I'm not sure what... Wow! Okay, so Avi does have an Olaf ready to go. It does give him a lot of farming proactivity, being able to power farm the jungle and clear through and be able to have a strong objective soloing capabilities. And 100 Thieves next, Kemvi is going to be potentially wanting to lock in the Lee Sin as an answer.
I love this Olaf. I'm sure, you yourself as an Olaf aficionado would know that playing against someone like Senna, playing against someone like Set and Zoe, this Olaf runs people over. Senna's not going to have really any space to exist, barring Radiance getting behind earlier into the game. But Zoe and all these champions will not be able to deal with Olaf. And on the backside, Radiance have really great long range kind of tools to deal with members while they're waiting for this. And now we get a special treat. We get to see Tenacity's Aurelia. I really hope that this isn't a... oh my god. I mean, you get an Aurelia here for... I'm just making sure... I just want to make sure that, like this isn't like oh, we're changing this pick, or, something along those lines, but Aurelia is just beautiful. Every time Tenacity has played this champion, it has been somewhat of a treat. It didn't look too amazing versus Frostfire, but on the opposite side here, Radiance are going to actually pick the Renekton into it, which, they are a little bit short range. They are technically just waiting for their ADC and their mid laners to look for Siege, but they do have a pretty well-versed team comp, especially against something like Senna and the Zoe.
You mentioned Tenacity and the Aurelia pick because, as many people know, it is by far his most played champion. A lot of people will meme that he is just a one-trick Aurelia player. And on any other champion, he can't play anything else. But he has had good performances on champions other than Aurelia. So the fact that he gets a chance to lock it in now, we'll have to see if the solo queue results can translate into this game. It is the final game of the series between 100 Thieves next and Radiance, and is very important for both teams, as 100 Thieves clearly want to maintain their oppressive win streak and be undefeated in terms of overall series, whereas Radiance, they're looking for their first win, and being able to take someone down like 100 Thieves next would just be a massive, monumental accomplishment for them.
Well, they want their first win against 100 Thieves, right? They're both of these teams are 2-0 in their bracket, between Frostfire and Slaughterhouse doing really well against both of them, but this would be actually really impressive. And I think that with this draft, this is one of the stronger drafts for them, where they've given themselves a better chance in this one to actually try to contest for 100 Thieves. They can fight in the early game if they want to play around and go. Avi's on a jungler that allows him to play not only aggressively, but also allows him to, as the game goes later and later, try to deal with things like Senna and Zoe. And on the opposite side, 100 Thieves, they still have champions like this Lee Sin and Aurelia that will play into their playstyle. However, I think that the Senna pick will be key in kind of determining who will win the series here. Senna tends to be this champion that if she can't do enough damage, Renekton and Olaf become massive trouble points for you, and you really can't interact in the game. Set will hopefully try to peel these members off, but I think with this draft, it is going to be really difficult here for 100 Thieves to try to execute and fight against Radiance. So potentially this could be where Radiance finds kind of finds their mark, finds their little niche in this series, and potentially even take, like you were saying, the series over them. Obviously, both of these teams, like you're saying, are 2-0, but I think finding a win over 100 Thieves would be a massive upset when, you know, if everyone were to just go back to when they were coming into the series.
My biggest concern is obviously this top side duo matchup, because I think that's where, based on how game 2 went, is very vital to the success of 100 Thieves. Tenacity needs to be able to pop off on this Aurelia, and this last piss Renekton does throw a wrench into 100 Thieves' plans, because yeah, it is somewhat of a skill matchup, but Renekton is very scary and very difficult to deal with, is able to potentially just 100-0 Aurelia in multiple situations early on into the laning phase. And if Olaf is there, I'm pretty sure that the Renekton Olaf 2v2 is much more in their favor, at least pre-6 for sure. And so Kenvi is going to have to find really clever pathing and be able to communicate enough information to Tenacity so that he can get out of this lane phase alive and in a position where he can snowball.
Yep. I mean, they're probably going to just go for another level 1 invade. They have a much stronger one on the side of Radiance, so I don't expect for 100 Thieves to try and force the issue when it comes to that top side. But like you're saying, I think that this could definitely be a much easier snowball, and it's not like Lucian where you can kind of give up your early laning phase and still be a split push pressure later in the game. Aurelia tends to be massively feast or famine, and if she doesn't have that early spike with the Blade of the Ruin King and going into Black Cleaver, it becomes really difficult for you to deal with her. So she doesn't have a lot of great items to build into this matchup, and I'm interested to see where Tenacity kind of takes this and where the rest of the Thieves kind of end up towards the end of the game.
We will be able to see how this final game plays out, but before we get into game, we've got one more shout out. It is to our parent company in Unified Esports Association. They're a Kansas-based company that oversees multiple products that specialize and operate as a dynamic pipeline within the esports industry. They've providing shared experiences that directly serve collegiate, youth, hobbyists, and amateur video game players at every stage. Starting as a small student group out of Wichita State University, since then, Unified Esports Association has grown to be a veteran organizer of tournaments and events throughout the United States. They host tournaments for games like League of Legends, Rocket League, as well as Overwatch. For more information, check them out at uea.gg, and we'll see you in a bit as we get ready for Game 3.
As I bleed for you, cry for you, let me bleed. Let me all of the pain seems to follow. like a shadow, dark and cold to the touch. Am I insane not to let go? Oh, go on, just do what you do. And it hurts as I bleed for you, cry for you. Let me bleed as I bleed for you, cry for you. Let me bleed. Let me. Find your way into this wonderland. Cross the maze, the dark, the innocent. Chase the faith, the thrill, the heaven sent. I got your world upside down. The labyrinth will guide you far away to a place where senses will decay. Your ghost and mind will shadow play. I got your world upside down. Upside down.
It is down to the wire, ladies and gentlemen, as we are finally back for Game 3, the climax of this series between 100 Thieves Next and Radiance. Five-man fan seems to be the drill for both of these teams. No cheeky level 1 invades, although any aggressive vision that can be placed safely will be vital to both teams.
Yeah, they're gonna look to try and at least aggress early on. Looks like not too much out of the way. Yeah, so Avi's just gonna go for a ward right into the middle of the bush. Make sure that, hey, if they are gonna try and invade onto my bot side afterwards, Kenvi, we'll just get caught out. And taking a look at pathing, we were like, okay, where is Engo and where is this Engo versus Tenacity matchup gonna end up kind of going towards? And it seems like yet again we're seeing just splitting up of the map. Just go. Kenvi takes care of the bot side. Avi takes this top side, and really just try to make sure that certain members are kind of just being played around.
Well, currently both junglers are hovering the top side of the map. Now, Avi on this Olaf does have a little bit more freedom in where he wants to make his first appearance in terms of ganks, but more than likely, if he wants to get a level lead and a tempo lead on the Lee Sin matchup, he just wants to full clear his entire jungle. So we should expect to see top side of the map cleared by the 2-minute and 25-minute mark, and then he'll be making his way towards the bottom side of the map. But it's up to Kenby now to see if he's going to go for something standard as well, or if he might try to do something cheeky early on towards that top lane.
Yeah, and I think the most important part here, right, is that both bot lanes want to make sure that they get to lane as early as possible. They want to try and at least set up for either a level 2 or making sure that they're contesting. Flay,
Take a look at this. Copy actually took the time to use his agency and prio to get some. He didn't put the ward down, but he was checking to see if the Raptors were up and available. And so they should know that Avi is potentially on the Krugs. Kenby squats him out and potentially wants to look for any aggression, but is not able to land anything. So the invade is kind of deterred, and Kenby, at least he has information on where Avi is, and he's super low. He wants to pull Copy over to make this invade happen as Kenby. I'm not sure if he was able to secure the Raptor away from Avi. It looks like he did get the smite down. And so far, it is a lot of time being burned from Kenby, and he doesn't really get anything out of it other than knowing exactly where Avi is, but he's down 2 camps.
Yeah, he loses so much for that right there, right? Copy gets kind of pushed on by Young. Young tries to fight him if he's moving off of the wave, and Drowsy comes in, but Copy runs right out. Nice use of the ghost right there that he picked up from the laning phase, because Sleepy Trouble Bubble and the Spell Thieves is a great addition.
But Flash coming in from Otto wants to force something onto Andy and King. Death Sentence goes wide in between. Akinoki looking for a beautiful combo of damage down. Can they get enough more burst onto Andy? Ignite comes out to deter Aki from being able to play further, and Avi is going to be here to be able to rectify the odds. He has Flash, looks for the undertow into Auto, knowing that he doesn't have the Flash to follow up. Flay is there, but they pull him right under the tower, forcing a Flash of his own, and now Kenby has made his way, as well as Tenacity, and Kenby picks up first blood. Tenacity's also here to clean things up, but Engo making the teleport as well. Tenacity, if he can find the pieces to look one for onto Avi, and will protect Ken, or Aki, I should say. Holy what is happening? All battery, it's a clown fiesta in the bottom lane. Everyone's here. Get everyone down the party, and overall, it is a massive advantage for 100 Thieves.
Yeah, and they're able to find 2 kills right there. It was looking so good for Radiance. Yes, you force them off. Not only do you trade the 2v2 bot lane, Andy and King are able to try to fight Set, and we're saying, okay, maybe if Otto goes down, this is an amazing trade, but in the end, it goes completely sideways. I'll hold that as Andy Benny getting kind of set up here. Not a lot of mana from either Tenacity or Aki to try and contest, and this is a pretty massive wave, so it'd be almost suicide. I'll hold that. Andy Benny could go down again.
Woo! Flashes at the last second before the Senna W does proc on the initial, or on the second half of the spell. So Andy Benny does not get locked down right in front of Otto for an easy follow-up with the Facebreaker Copy. Taking a lot of damage as Young Mid does have both summoners. He's going to use this flash that he burned. Oh, he's trying to bait Young Mid, and it might have worked. Kenby just needs one more auto attack. Doesn't even need a Sonic Wave. Beautiful bait from Copy. Lures Young Mid right in.
Yeah, and now it's 2,000 gold. And take a look at some of the lane states right now. I mean, Andy Bendy, yes, he's up about 15 CS into this lane where, I mean, realistically, you're looking at it, but a lot of this has been equalized by just how much gold has been given over. I mean, Aki's actually ahead 50 gold right now, thanks to how many assists he has, and even in topside, Aurelia just has complete control of this matchup as Otto yet again looking for another Facebreaker. If we take a look, Engo just has to go fishing into the jungle. Hey,
wait, that was actually pretty advantageous for Otto. The Death Sentence pulled him in right into Andy so he could get the true damage portion of the W. And Kenby's now here. He misses the Sonic Wave, but Andy doesn't have Flash from before. He just needs to be able to walk up, get the Tempest Cripple Strike down, and it's just an easy pickup for Otto and crew over on 100 Thieves.
Yet again, this Aphelios kind of becoming like a trap pick almost. Similar to something like Misfortune, it is just so immobile, and you need to play around it. You need to make sure it's safe. I'll hold that as the fighting never stops. 100 Thieves.
Tenacity doesn't have Flash from before. He doesn't have enough mana for Vanguard. He burst out Engo, but he should go down here to Avi. But still, surprisingly enough, Tenacity finds a way to be able to find something out of what should have been a very, really straightforward and easy play for Radiance.
Yeah, and now Radiance are kind of scrambling, looking for what advantages. Kenby is still sitting down here. They're looking for something with the Hex Flash Auto. Facebreaker.
Facebreaker into the W, gets a decent amount of damage on the Andy, but he's got the Chakram and he's got the Severum. He's got a lot of damage in the melee range, and he gets the shutdown on the Avi, or I should say Kenvi in this situation, but Copy is able to find the Retribution kill, looks for the Power Star onto the Sleepy King, and now he's under tower. He's got no reprieve. He's got no reinforcements coming in. They just need to push in this wave, and soon King will eventually fall to one of these members here. It will be very simple. There is the W, and it's just that simple.
Yeah, beautiful job yet again. 100 Thieves just taking advantage of how slow this Radiance team is right now to react. They're not able to try to find any kind of advantage for themselves. We even see in topside that they have to play reactively. We were taking a look. I was really giving a lot of this draft edge over to the side of Radiance. I love just how early and proactive this team is, but it feels like right now 100 Thieves are saying, okay, you want to play a fast game? We're going to play it a lot faster and cause you to either be proactive and try to make something happen on the opposite side of the map where we can play a little bit safer around our Senna, or you kind of get caught with, it kind of feels like they were caught in first gear. They're trying to play stick shift and it is not working for the side of Radiance. Take a look at a lot of these leads. I mean, 2 levels of gear capacity. This guy has 70 CS to 27. Granted, there's a massive way stacking here, so you should get about 10 to 15 back, but man, that is incredibly rough, especially in melee matchups like that.
And we talked about how vital it was for Tenacity to ensure that he got out of the early levels alive. And, that bot lane massacre that occurred with the double teleports from both sides just proved very, very fruitful for Tenacity. Clearly, Ango lost out on more CS than he did, and Tenacity being able to pick up a kill and assist in that very crazy skirmish puts him ahead in the matchup. He is effectively 1,400 gold in terms of stats over Ango. And, I mean, a Cutlass to 2 Dorn's Blades is just not going to do anything for Ango. And now this top lane split push matchup that should have been on an advantage for Radiance, I don't know how he gets out of it.
I mean, yeah, that's if they play around it, right? I'll actually hold this as now both junglers are somewhat in position near bot side. My God, Tenacity, relax. Come on, this man has a family. Give Ango a shot here. Got the Predator from the set. Here we go.
Oh, and they're standing right on top of the Dark Passage. Andy, unfortunately, he's dealing with 2 meatballs. And I mean, they're not necessarily meatballs. They are pretty fit, but it's just enough body space to be able to occupy. But Avi is here waiting in the wings, ready to counteract on that Kenvi, but Jesus Christ. Death Sentence, unfortunately, does not connect from King here and is not able to make the play happen. Otto says, oh, I'm under tower. Well, I'm just going to use the showstopper to try and get things out. And they want to turn things around. They have the Dawning Shout to be able to provide enough damage. Otto gets a full true grit empowered W there, and Coffee's here for the re-engage with Kenvi. And just poor members of Radiance think that they can salvage something out of this dive, but they just can't.
Yeah, the Dawning Shadow comes through and not only gives them a shield, but luckily enough, Otto also gets Aftershock during all of that, which is just insane to think about. The massive amount of keystones that just happened. Otto starts that fight off with Predator. He gets Aftershock afterwards, and it never stops right here. Goodbye, Andy Bendy. I love Set.
There's just no chance for Andy to be able to play the game. He dies, he respawns, he comes back, he dies again. Kenvi, it should be fine. It looks like he just ward hopped over the wall as Camera says there's nothing to worry about on the bottom side of the map. Tenacity is getting ready to potentially all-in Engo. He has the Blade of the Ruin King fully completed. Engo, you've got Dominus and Stun, but what is that to Tenacity, who's got fully stacks? He's not able to have enough movement speed, however, to be able to run down Engo, as it is only slightly magical boots versus full Ninja Tabby. Tenacity, though, playing with fire, wants to bait Engo back in. He wants to keep him here so that he can ensure that he's not going to be able to get a teleport back.
This is like breakneck pace right now for the side of 100 Thieves. They're playing so fast and reckless right now. And even in that bot side dive, no one ends up going down for their side. Radiance ends up going down. Another 2 members. And it kind of feels like, yet again, it feels like Radiance are not necessarily playing around their champions like they should. I think specifically, Avi is playing kind of incredibly reactive, and this is not a champion that you typically see gank. I'll hold that as a yet again. Otto now has Hail of Blades. Avi's coming.
Otto uses the showstopper, and he stops the show for King. They thought that they had the advantageous crowd control to be able to lock down this set, but Otto is just so damn strong, and he's just building full tank items. He's got tabby boots and a dead man's plate on the way, but the difference in stats is enough for him to be able to turn things around along with Akinoki. This bot lane is pretty much set and done if Avi cannot help restabilize it.
Yeah, and we were talking. Oh, hold that. Goodbye, Engo. Can we just?
You were saying?
Yeah. I was talking about when we saw this Olaf pick. You had brought up that this is a champion that thrives when it comes to taking objectives by themselves. They go and take Rifttail. They can do Dragon. Please tell me Copy's gonna end up killing someone. I love Zoe.
Oh.
Oh
well,
no! Wait.
Avi...
Oh! All right, well,
Mentals are being boomed right now.
Oh, no.
Battery
Oh,
Copy
no,
finds
no,
the
no,
Sleepy
no,
Trouble
no.
bottle and gets the flash with the paddle star. 100 Thieves are just taking down Radiance one after another. There seems to be no moment of reprieve for them. Copy roaming over from the river, gets
No,
Andy, gets the triple on the Engo, can't even salvage anything after a flash and a teleport. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at 10k gold advantage for 100 Thieves under 13 minutes.
Yeah, that's yeah, I mean, we can take a look at this Dragon. I just want to take a look. So about 1,000 HP on this. A level lead. He has ultimate on this Olaf here. I mean, Otto's there kind of tanking. That's like 30 HP steal from Senna. I mean, honestly, like, it kind of feels, what this game feels like right now is, throughout the whole series, actually, it felt like, okay, Radiance, they get kind of heartbroken in game one, and then they have this really triumphant return. 31 HP was the Dragon. Gotta love it. But coming to game two, they have this really triumphant return where they can kind of face the evil that is in front of them, and they're able to, slay the Dragon this time. But then they come into their third trial, they come into the third game, and it kind of feels like the cheats have been turned on, right? Like, 100 Thieves are like, all right, so we're done messing around. It kind of feels like I'll hold that. Oh my god. Welcome to ADC, boys. Welcome to ADC in Season 10, lads. Because that's exactly what that just right there. I mean, can we doing exactly what he asked you, but yeah, it kind of. I don't even know what it feels like at this point, because I mean, we're taking tenacity.
Bro, not like this. Holy mackerel. Avi and Engo just cannot catch a break. Tenacity buys enough time on his main champion of choice just for Copy to be able to come in, save him with the Sleepy Trouble bubble. And if that wasn't enough, Akinoki was also there. I don't know what to say, Alk Battery. It is 23 kills to 4, 3 turrets to none. This is a very, very devastating, oppressive game state for 100 Thieves right now. They are taking everything, and for every proactive play that Radiance try to do to find a way back into the game, it completely backfires.
Yeah, and honestly, it kind of feels like what this game is, I mean, 100 Thieves are just kind of playing around they're playing really well around their lanes, but the problem is that, like, this is exactly how 100 Thieves tends to play. They say, all right, you want to play down and dirty, you want to play in the dirt, let's do it, boys. We're just going to look to fight. And they've kind of completely given up on kind of just farming in a couple of other lanes. So I'm kind of interested to see what ends up happening. I think it's almost impossible here for the side of I know the feeling is.
Bro,
this is
are you?
what this
You
game is.
have to. Oh my god, ladies and gentlemen,
left the game and they surrendered.
devastation is enough from the side of 100 Thieves. They have forced the surrender out of them. They say, we cannot take any more. I mean, when we go to game two, Andy and Engo were the heroes of that game, being able to not only play weak side perfectly or pretty damn well, and Andy just taking off. This game, it seemed personal from the side of 100 Thieves, because if you look at the people that had the most deaths, Andy and Engo, and to an extent King as well, they were on a mission to say, no, you guys are not good. We're better. We're going to make sure that you cannot actually think that you guys can take us to a full series. Because I feel like this was targeted cyber bullying here. This is nuts.
I mean, the game started with a TP into bot side, right? Like, they look for a fight. All 5 members of each team kind of shows up in bot lane, and tenacity comes up massively. And yet again, Avi, who's someone that we were saying, hey, this is, this is the kind of key member that we're looking at Radiance when we're looking at these certain members, we're saying, okay, well, this is a team that's still looking to try and gel together. We're looking at Avi to be this kind of superstar player or the key player that needs to make different, kind of be the difference maker for this team against others. But in this game, Avi was just on a leash, and I mean, all there were a couple other members that were kind of feeling a little bit dogged down that game. But anytime that Kenvi showed up on the map, Avi was forced to kind of just follow him. And realistically, there's not much you can do. And if you're gonna play like that, you might as well just play tank.
It was it's a
Gentleman
draft
that
dip.
is played an amazing. I mean, it wasn't even draft diff, right? Like it was. I thought that this draft was going to look amazing, but it feels like Radiance yet again completely lost themselves in this game. They didn't kind of play to their objectives. They kept fighting. You have an Aphelios, and every single time we even saw it in game 2, Aphelios without any kind of items, without any scaling, if you don't give him time to ramp up, is absolutely useless. It does no damage, and his utility can only take him so far. We didn't even get to the point in the game where Andy or where Aki or Andy can try to outplay on this Aphelios like we saw in game 2. It got nowhere near that point. Otto and Aki in a lane where realistically Set is incredibly difficult to deal with, and you kind of counterpicked yourself by picking up this rush. Realistically, I mean, yes, it is a first pick, but there's only so many things you can ban on red side. You only get 3, and realistically, they didn't do too much in this game. And again, Radiance looks so weak when they try to play other people's games. And they try to play 100 Thieves game, and only 100 Thieves know how to play only Tenacity knows how to play how Tenacity would. This guy is going pretty nuts, and yet again, Copy kind of being another silent killer this game. I know he says 7-0-4, but this guy every single game always feels like he has some sort of impact, regardless of where his team's at globally.
You said it earlier on into the game. Once we hit that 10K gold mark advantage for 100 Thieves, it was this Aphelios seems to be a trap for both teams because clearly we understand that Aphelios, when he scales into the game and he's able to be played around and get that get the item break points, he is very powerful and he is very terrifying to deal with. But early on, he just offers nothing, right? And the Kalista game that Andy was able to pilot was incredible. We were kind of hoping that he was going to go for another early game marksman, but they picked the Aphelios instead, and it was heavily punished. They had no agency around it. Avi went for a path that was spotted out by Kenvi. He still could have played around Engo, but they opted into that very disastrous, wonky 5-on-5 towards the bottom side of the map. And it's just like you said, they played reactive. They didn't play proactive. They didn't play the way that they needed to that enabled their win conditions to come online. And just like that, 100 Thieves walk away with a very, very convincing third game
Game
in the
3. I was gonna
climax
say
of this series.
game 2 is a little questionable. Game 3 is
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, no, no. I'm not saying the series was convincing overall. I will say there's a lot of bright points that Radiance need to look at, and they need to clearly play around Andy and ensure that he gets an early game pick so that they can snowball through because that looks good. Everything else so far, at least against 100 Thieves, has not really worked out in their favor.
Yeah, I'm really key to see, as we go closer and closer towards the end of the season, where we see Avi. I think, we kind of put a pin in this for right now. We are only in week 3, but I think as we get closer and closer to the end of the season, I'm really interested to see what the development is here for this squad, for this Radiant squad, just across amateur in general. They do have a little bit of a rocky start, and that tends to be the case for teams that are newly built and have a lot of kind of onboarding pieces that are all coming on at the same time. I'd be interested to see where Avi kind of ends up, what his role is in the team and where it develops as we get a lot closer to playoffs and what their play style ends up being. Because it feels like, yet again, kind of all over the place. When you get to more simpler team compositions, they seem to do very well, but when they have to interact either in solo lanes or they have to interact independently of each other, that's where this team starts to fall apart really heavily.
Yeah. And then overall, 100 Thieves still maintain their dominating record, not just in Upsurge, but across amateur leagues as in totality. And that concludes the end of our broadcast for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We want to thank you all the viewers that came out and watched this incredibly fun series to watch between the two teams. I think, 100 Thieves have a lot to learn, as well as Radiance, and they have a lot to be proud of for being able to take off a game from 100 Thieves, because it's no easy feat. None of the other amateur teams have been able to do it so far this season, so there's definitely a lot to improve on. But on behalf of myself, Alk Battery, our amazing producer Hypertension, and the rest of the broadcast crew here at Upsurge, we thank you for watching. Have a wonderful evening.